Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time of the day you care to listen. It's Do You Expect to Talk? I know you said something different there.
What did you normally say? No,
Well,
nearly say, sorry.
It's a Cinematronics podcast. Oh, no, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not.
It's
no,
okay, you have baby brain, it's alright.
Yes.
Well,
yes,
we
I
are
have
talking
been.
about doing one of those. We might go into that in a minute. We are talking of doing a Cinematronics podcast in the next few days, or one of these. And
Yes.
we don't know what banner
Yes.
we're doing it on.
Yeah. I assumed it was going to be Do You Expect to Talk?
Yeah, it might as well
Just
be,
a-
actually. It's only ever Cinematronics was just me and you, actually. And
Yeah.
Becca's going to be on this one. It's we're going to just... We're just going to do like a bit of a yearly review, but it won't be like the summer review. With the summer review, Chris and I talk for 10 minutes beforehand, listing out the films we've both seen, listing out the films he hasn't seen and wants to talk about, or wants me to talk about, and vice versa. And that will vary from year to year. And then broadly, I keep that list and I just prompt us along with moving on to this or whatever. Well, I don't think we're going to do it like that. We'll just chat about what we've seen, and it will go a bit random. It will just be like
how we felt of the year in general, like, you know.
yeah, we're just going to have a chat about whatever for as long as we want to, just
Yeah.
as a little bonus for you all.
Yes.
And we're going to do that probably before New Year. It'll maybe out around New Year, actually, because we're recording with Charlie again on the 23rd. That'll come out sometime between Christmas and New Year, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. But this is our once yearly special, Chris.
Yes, it's our commentary, Christmas commentary, which I forget how many of these we've done. I'm amazed how many we've done, because we've been going quite a while now.
7. This will be 7. We did.
We're literally running out of Christmas movies.
Well,
But,
more on that in a minute.
We've got a few on our list.
We're not. We can still, but like, I fancy doing a film that feels like a holiday film to me, and we'll come on to that in a minute. And it isn't. And I've actually made this argument before that one year I'm not saying I will, but I might decide to do Groundhog Day. Well, Groundhog Day's the 2nd of February, but it's set in the snow and it's a bit of a holiday for the residents of that town or whatever.
it does feel very much like that sort of Pottersville type town. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a seasonal film.
It
that,
does.
Holiday or not.
that Christmas town.
Bedford Falls, yeah.
that everyone.
Yeah,
gets-
Becca Falls.
Like
Yeah,
everyone
Pottersville's
gets
the one with all the strippers and that. I'd rather watch that, but
Oh yes, sorry.
That'll be the spin-off.
Oh my god, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Oh,
Or the slums.
yeah.
yeah, no, I need to. watch it.
A warm front moving in that film would have been totally different.
Oh god.
Yeah, so we
There's
started
actually a
with.
movie called Pottersville
Is that?
with yeah, it's on Netflix or one of the streaming, like Netflix or
Really?
Amazon. Yeah,
It's not the Wonderful Life spin-off we
no,
were
it's not.
asking for.
because I did think that. I was like, is this no? But no, it's got what's his name, General Zod in it.
Oh really?
Michael Shannon.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Well, you might have meant Terence Stamp, to be fair, but yeah.
Yes. Well, it's even going to be one of the two, isn't it? It's like.
Well, yeah. Until
But,
James Gunn does his thing and it's like some 12-year-old. Yeah. No, just on the whole Christmas, I mean, we started with It's a Wonderful Life, so we started with a choice from me, and then I think it was Love Actually with Chris, and then I think it was... What did you choose the first time? I can't remember, Becca.
I've actually got a list somewhere. I'll try and find it.
I know my second choice was Trading Places. We did Gremlins. We did... Oh, Scrooged, it was.
Yeah, Scrooge, that was it.
We did Gremlins. We did Jingle All the Way. And now we're back round to me again.
Yeah, so yeah, Wonderful Life with Yourself and Trading Places, and my choice is Scrooge. I've actually Jingle All the Way, Gremlins.
Yeah.
And tonight's film is your choice, Dave.
So
What do you believe?
basically, just to summarise, we've had 6 Christmas commentaries, we've had 4 Stone Cold classics, and Chris's choices.
Sorry about that. I've been worried
Well, I
about
thought I got to mix it up.
films. No.
I don't care. You can pick anything you
I've
like.
got
Now
these
we're
like
not.
1, 2, 3,
We're not.
4,
Yeah, we've done
5,
6.
6, 7, 8, 9 potential family or seasonal or holiday.
We
themed
have not done a
films.
single version of A Christmas Carol yet. So
No, we haven't.
There's
There's
loads of those.
There's a choice of those.
There's including the Muppets one. There's loads. We're not running out of Christmas films. It's more about what I
No.
fancy doing this year.
And
And
we
in
haven't
my
even done
case,
things like Die Hard or Krampus or any international Christmas movies, any worldwide Christmas or festive.
We've still got, obviously,
people.
Chris's next choice will be something like Santa with muscles, but
Well, there was that Violet Night that came out, wasn't there?
yeah, of course. You know, every year something gets added to it. We may end up doing that on like a home version in a wee year or two. You just don't know. We're not really running out of Christmas films. It's more about what do you watch on a cold night with your Christmas lights on that evokes the holidays to you. Now, of course, we're all British, so we don't have Thanksgiving here. So we know what Thanksgiving is, and we know how it's different. But at the same time, it's still fundamentally, in the film I'm about to introduce, it's somebody going home in snowy weather to eat turkey with his family. And that to me is a holiday. And the fact that we don't have Thanksgiving, that can stand in as a Christmas film as far as I'm concerned. So I've gone with the 1987 John Candy and Steve Martin film, Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Yeah, so, I mean, it gets to my question, what is a Christmas film? Doesn't it?
Oh, here we go, that old chestnut.
I don't have a single answer to it. I think that there's... Planes, Trains and Automobiles by definition is not a Christmas film, but it makes you feel the same way. Those heartwarming sort of family getting together things, you know. Oh, there's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation as well, of course.
Oh yeah, National Lampoon. I love that on the list.
But I don't know. I mean, I struggle. I think a Christmas film is personal. What does it mean to you? Now, obviously, we just mentioned Avatar, for example. Avatar will never be a Christmas film, whether you choose to watch it because it came out at Christmas. Lord of the Rings, you know, they all came out near Christmas, so maybe people watch the trilogy at Christmas.
Majesties? No.
I think Christmas kind of almost needs to be in it somewhere, you know? And, I mean, Majesties, it's quite oblique, really, in that they are decorating a Christmas tree at one point and it's set in snow. Die Hard.
It doesn't form a massive plot point though, does it?
It's not a massive plot point though.
No.
I mean, it's barely more of a Christmas film than For Your Eyes Only is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is a Christmas tree in it, and I watch it around Christmas. And I know, Chris, you watch Die Hard, and you can't really argue because it's set at Christmas. But there's nothing about that film that really evokes Christmas. It could have been set in October, couldn't it?
It's kind of like, yeah. I mean, well. Generally, yeah, it could be. You know, I mean, funnily enough, it's like Gremlins. It was released at summertime as well.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing. Batman Returns again, set at Christmas, yet released at summer.
I know.
It's I mean, it's very difficult because whenever everyone has these debates like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie, and well, it all comes very much like popularised thing to say now.
Yeah, but it's only Die Hard. It's like, can't you come out with a hot take on another action film that only tangentially has anything to do with Christmas?
Well, like Lethal Weapon, I always like that. That's what I go. What Lethal Weapon is just as much as a Christmas movie as Die Hard. You could make an argue. I've said this on the podcast before. Yeah, you could say it more so. I mean, but you know, these things are in there. Like, for example, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, a guy getting back to his family. What's Die Hard about? It's about a guy literally fighting for his wife. You know, he's fighting to stay with his wife. That's essentially what it is. He goes to Nakatomi Plaza to save his marriage, and he ends up actually literally fighting terrorists to the death for it. Again, Lethal Weapon is about like basically like fight for a man's soul. He gets like, you know, he finds reason to live by being like involved in like a good man's family, and you know. And that very man finds like a reason to carry on doing his duty. You know, he finds like they basically find each other.
Yeah.
You know, that is a Christmas movie. You know, you could say it's just as much as say It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, it's not done the same way, but you know the themes are actually in there when you actually dig deeper beyond like the gunfights and whatnot. You know, they are there. So, and Dave, when it comes to what is a Christmas movie, it's basically a movie you watch at Christmas.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. You know,
some of them you'd word it different. Because if someone says, yeah, my favourite Christmas film's Die Hard, and you think, yeah, a bit of a hot take, but not really a hot take anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, okay. I think if it was the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I'd be more likely to word it, they're films I like to watch at Christmas, because they originally came out around that time of year.
Yeah, Star Wars is another one, but then Star Wars kind of has a feel like you're opening your new favourite toy.
Yeah.
Because, that's not to diminish like the franchise anyway, but it has that kind of like, because it's associated with action figures, it's very much, it feels like it has that sort of sense of fun, that childlike fun as a kid.
Yeah.
So
I don't know where that leaves Avatar though, because both of those films have been released at Christmas more or less, and the new one is effectively in what is pretty much a stand-in for the Pacific Islands. It would be like calling Moana a Christmas film.
Well, that came out around Christmas as well, didn't it?
Did it?
Yeah, it was not far off.
Okay.
It was definitely at least November. It was out.
Jaws the Revenge is a Christmas film. Yeah.
Prometheus is a Christmas film. That's set at Christmas.
Yeah. Well, all the characters behave like they might have been a bit pissed up on something Christmassy, but they were a bit thick in that film, weren't they? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've seen a sort of fairly good cross-section of the sort of things we pick. I mean, Trading Places, I mean, that takes place over a few weeks or months, doesn't it? I mean, It's a Wonderful Life. It's just that the framing device is Christmas Eve. He's going to kill himself on Christmas Eve. But, there's large bits of that film set in the summer or the spring, or, you know what I mean? It's all over the place, but it's kind of heartwarming at the end.
The Wizard of Oz, I'm sure people consider that like a film they watch at Christmas, yet that's not really got anything to do with Christmas. But yeah, would you consider Wizard of Oz a Christmas movie? Do you know what I mean?
I've never thought about it. But yeah, in terms of what is a Christmas film, that is a debate you can have. In terms of what we're going to class for this, I just think, it can be. It's something that vaguely evokes winter holidays, and is something that you would watch around this time of year. I'm using a bit of a cheat this year, but it's partly because, along with A Groundhog Day, it's just the sort of classic I'd like to cover, and I think it doesn't go under its own series. Being a comedy, they're very difficult, a bit like the Austin Powers films, they're very difficult to sit and critique. So they're better to just throw on and talk over.
Indeed. So you've chosen. So has this always been a favourite of yours, Dave?
Yeah, funnily enough, I don't remember my first viewing of it, but I remember my first exposure to it in that I used to watch Barry Norman's film show. And sometimes at the end of his show, as he signed off, he would show you an upcoming film. And I don't think he showed a trailer. He showed the bit where him and Kevin Bacon are racing for the taxi. And he showed that signing off a show. And I was like, oh, and I liked Steve Martin. I think I'd already seen The Man with Two Brains at least. I think I might not have seen The Jerk at that point. I think I saw The Jerk 2 or 3 years later. But I'd seen a couple of Steve Martin films and liked him. I don't think John Candy, even though John Candy had been in Splash and I'd seen Splash, I didn't give it, he hadn't imprinted on me. And I don't think he did until Uncle Buck, which is a year or two later. So it was mainly like, oh, Steve Martin, I like him. And I saw it fairly soon afterwards. I definitely didn't see it theatrically. And it's one of those films that when we all used to watch television in a more traditional way, I used to watch it if it popped up. I showed it to my wife about a year ago because she'd never seen it. It's something I'm always happy to throw on. So yeah, it's always been a favourite of mine. In terms of, and I think there's a couple of other reasons for that now. I mean, obviously, and this has now been the case for a very long time, the untimely death of, well, John Candy's the obvious one. I remember going to see my grandparents. I was about 17 at the time, and I picked up their newspaper and it was on the front, and it just said John Candy dropped dead yesterday at the age of 43. And it didn't, I don't mean to make a joke of this because it's not funny, but my reaction almost was. You know when you read something and you understand it, but you've not taken it in properly? So I read, John Candy dropped dead at the age of 43, and my first reaction in my head was, is he all right now? Like, he dropped dead yesterday, but don't worry, he's fine. But then John Hughes didn't live to much of an age.
The shock of
That's what it was.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not making a joke, but John Hughes didn't even make it to 60. And I think his career was a strange one, in that most of his stuff, I don't even know what he died of. I suspect it was a heart attack. Sorry, I am looking. But he died at 59. Both of them died of heart attacks. And John Hughes's career, without looking, his early stuff was great and made his legend, and his influence is still in a lot of things. As profane as they can be, Kevin Smith, for his films, has always cited him as a reference. They've definitely been an influence on the most recent Spider-Man trilogy, the Tom Holland one. But towards the end of his career, so I'm wondering if this is basically the stepping off point, because he wrote or directed or produced so many of these great films, through to probably, thinking about it, Home Alone. And then after that, he becomes like a writer of lots of things. And I can't remember what he wrote now, but I've got a feeling it was things like Problem Child and possibly Curly Sue. But this is like towards the end of his peak, where anything he did was great. Steve Martin had done Roxanne the year before. He'd done... I'm trying to think what he did before that. I think, what's he called? The Three Amigos was probably the year before as well. 2 years before that, he did All of Me. That's the title of a film. I'm not saying he did All of Me. A couple of years before that, The Man with Two Brains, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. He did The Jerk. So
that's a great film.
This is towards the end of Steve Martin's peak as well, because there was a period where everything he did was amazing. Probably through to something like LA Story, which is about 4 years after this. And then he seemed to sort of just do any old shit for money. So this is like a moment in time where three legends, the director and the two leading men, are absolutely at the peak of their powers, and it doesn't last for much longer after this.
Yeah, because John Hughes just didn't he just stopped making movies.
Yeah, but he carried on like writing for a while.
Yeah.
And so if you think of my formative years, I mean, I was about 10 when this was released. But if you think of the years that followed, I mean, Home Alone did not jibe well with a 13-year-old boy. I just found I'd probably
not the target demo.
I would probably appreciate it now, but I was just coming out of the target demographic, and I just found him loud and insufferable. But Home Alone was a massive success. I know that. But then he went and did Only the Lonely, which was a much smaller film. And then he just wrote a load of crap, just as I was getting into my pretentious teenage years. So I never understood the fuss about John Hughes. And I didn't even see The Breakfast Club till I was in my 30s. I saw it in America a few years ago.
I'll say something now. Hot take coming from me. I think The Breakfast Club is extremely overrated.
What?
In my opinion.
Yeah, no,
I find that movie kind of irritating and a bit like it might be because it established so much as what is considered like norm now, like isn't the stereotype tropes.
Yeah, that's where they all come from, pretty much, really, isn't it? And and plus also like everything that's come out recently about like how he treated his team and how he treated the cast and everything. It's just. I mean, it's not, obviously not cancelled one thing or another, but you just think, oh my god, really, So it's no surprise, really.
Well, I've got mixed feelings on him. I mean, I actually avoided The Breakfast Club, and the reason being, I continually saw only the scene where they were dancing, and I just assumed the whole film would be that, and I really wasn't on board for it. But when I look at his films, The Breakfast Club, I like, but I appreciate that I saw it long past the age it was aimed at me. So I was trying to sort of think of it through the prism of what's its target demographic, and it would be good. Weird Science I loved as a kid, mainly because that's total wish fulfillment if you're a teenage boy. Ferris Bueller's Day Off I don't like at all. I find Matthew, what's he called?
Broderick.
Matthew Broderick, I find him absolutely insufferable in it. The character's an asshole. Pretty in Pink I like.
He's not meant to be likeable though, is he? Isn't it to be a bit of a get?
You're meant to be on his side though, aren't you?
I don't think it's meant to be very likeable at all.
Isn't it meant to be wish fulfillment for teenagers? He gets a day off and gets to
he's skiving off school. Yeah, but
you know what? Here's another. I don't think Matthew Broderick's a good actor. He's not a leading man by any stretch.
Oh no, he's not. And they tried to make him a thing because he had a hit with War Games when he was a teenager. But yeah, then he goes on. His final film as a director was Curly Sue, and I, again, also the film show. They played a clip from that, and I just knew I never wanted to watch it. So I can't comment on if it's any good. But what I saw of it was fucking obnoxious. I also think Christmas Vacation is not the strongest vacation film. Now, we may cover it on this show, but I think the first two are stronger. I think Vacation and European Vacation are both better films. Certainly Vacation. I think European Vacation I need to see again, because I haven't seen for a long time. So you are getting like a 12-year-old's opinion on it there. His greatest commercial success was Home Alone. And yeah, then he went on to do like Dennis the Menace, the American version of it, like wrote it anyway.
Yeah, I didn't see
Baby's Day Out. I saw Baby's Day Out. We had some visitors.
That does sound very John Hughes-ish, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does. I don't think I saw either of those.
I saw Baby's Day Out years ago because I was married before, and we had like some friends around for dinner one night, and they brought this film because she really liked it, and they put it on, and it was dreadful. And that's fine, you know what I mean? You share things, not everything's going to be a hit with everyone in the room. So yeah, he had a strange career, and as a result, this film really stands out because it's one of the few films where they're all still at their peak. Although Candy's success went on for a few years afterwards, obviously. But I mean, he was dead 7 years after this, and you know, John Hughes made it about another 20. And yeah, it's just the bits of it stood out, and we're kind of used to cringe comedy now. This was, I don't know that this is cringe comedy. It's not the David Brent saying something stupid and everyone looking at him while there's silence. But there is this cringing at the situation he keeps finding himself in. And it's just like,
from one bad situation to
you're
another.
Enjoying it, but you're like, give this man some kind of break. This is awful. Right
it was
from
cringe
the start.
comedy before it was, not that it's trendy now, but before it was popular, before it was trendy in the 90s, early 2000s.
And also, it's around the same time as things like Wall Street. And whilst this film isn't trying to say anything, it's just a comedy. You do think, like, he's miles from home in some soulless office, making profits for people long past the time he should be on a plane. Our perception of the United States is, for any of you listening, you get nowhere near enough leave anyway. You know, the idea you take off like Thanksgiving and that's it, or you take Christmas Day and then you straight back to work. Is like
they don't get much annual leave, do they?
They don't. They get a fraction of what we get.
That's why they work hard.
And we get less than continental Europe. We're actually quite stingy, and we still get a lot more.
Yeah, we're quite low on the list of countries that get annual leave.
But the point is, it just feels like at that. You know, you wonder why he's doing it. You know, he's in New York fighting for taxis, too long at an office in what looks like quite a soulless job, and then he has a murderous time trying to get home. And you just think, like, his house is lovely, his family are lovely. Can't he get a job there and maybe earn a bit less?
But then there wouldn't be a film.
Well, yeah, I know that. It'd just be him. It'd just be him getting up for breakfast, wouldn't it?
Oh, this is nice. Oh, at the end. Oh.
Yeah. So anyway. Let's get this show on the road. I'm watching the Amazon Prime version of it. I actually thought I bought a copy of it. It turned out I didn't, but fortunately I could have got a copy. It's not the end of the world. We still have been able to do it. But when I looked today, I didn't actually purchase it. I must have rented it or got a download or something last time. But it is actually free to Prime users at the moment, so I'll be watching that version.
I'm the dinosaur on the DVD, unfortunately. So I don't do the Prime. Oh.
Yeah, it's alright. We're never in sync anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, having said that as well, the other thing is Prime can be a bit hit or miss as to whether you're watching PAL or NTSC anyway. So there's a possibility that we might actually go at the same pace as you.
No, and for you guys that are on Prime as well, you'll have some fun facts pop up, so you'll have to do that and shout them out as you go along.
Yeah. It's
X-ray. So.
Yeah. X-Ray is pretty decent as a little sort of offering on these things, although I don't use it very often.
But sometimes it's got some fun facts, or it tells you, oh, who's that actor? You know.
It's knowing who's in a scene sometimes as well. That's very handy. You just press one button, it's like, oh, that's the 4 people on the screen at the moment.
Yeah, I think I used it when we did What do we do? Trading Places?
Yes. Yeah,
I
we
seem to
did.
remember I used it for that. So that was quite good.
Okay. Right, so for
I'm on
those
the Paramount logo.
for those of you that aren't well, I haven't said go yet, but for those of you that are not into this thing, well, I doubt you're still with us 25 minutes into the show or whatever it is. But if you are still with us and you're like, not sure, we will be returning to our Dollars films next, and then after that episode there'll be that sort of just Chris, Becca, and I hanging out for a couple of hours. All right, so Chris, count us in.
Okay, so on count on 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And because Amazon Prime got
I've got to skip an advert, so I've just hit skip. I don't know what.
70th anniversary logo.
Right, so hang on. Right, the Paramount logo is forming now. What was your advert, Chris? Mine was Jack Ryan.
Yep, same here.
Yeah, so Paramount, a Gulf Western company's just come up, so that's where we are. And yeah, 75th anniversary. Which
Trains and automobiles, big letters.
Yeah, we haven't got that yet.
Oh, shall I pause it?
Yeah, Paramount Pictures presents.
Let me know when it says New York City 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Alright, will do. Now. Okay, so we
Thank
got...
you.
Alright.
Let's go.
So yeah, he's at his soulless job. But he's got a nice watch, you know, so it's worth it.
And this was what, 87? So it is
87,
good.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Time
2
does
days
fly.
before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That looks like some kind of advertising marketing company, isn't it? It's like it's Mad Men. It's Mad Men.
He's basically.
It's isn't it like those like big tall buildings? Just by it's not far off. What's the name? The big thing in the middle of New York that's like Times Square.
I was going to say you can't mean Times Square because I thought you'll never forget the name for that. So I was thinking, does he mean Rockefeller? Does he mean the pie? Right, okay.
Yeah, it's same sort of area, isn't it?
Rockefeller.
Yeah. Because I remember sort of walking back and all of a sudden looking up, thinking, "Oh yeah, these are the buildings of Scrooged." Because it's this big, these big massive like.
It's all in that tradition, isn't it?
It's like massive like tall build like sort of.
To be fair, I went to New York once in 2004, so my memory will be playing tricks on me. But I've got a strong image of it in my head, but the errors and inaccuracies do creep in.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, I think last time I went was well over 10 years ago, so I would like to go again. But it'd be interesting to see because I haven't seen this film in.
Cool. Cool. If you're happy to pay, Becca, we'll record our New Year's review of the year in New York.
Yeah, let's go. Right, let's just hop on a plane. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That would be cool to actually do it from a film location at one point. That'd be really cool. Obviously, I know you can't see us, but should we ever make it show our faces on the YouTube, I'm sure we can do it. But I think that's getting increasingly complicated these days. So I've not seen this film forever. I don't know how is New York and Chicago treated? How is it a character in the film? How is it portrayed?
He's not in New York long enough. I mean, this gives you an idea of his life. He feels so lacking agency in his own life. He's stuck in that building till he's released. He's out on the street and he's just a small guy in a big city, really.
Yeah.
This would count as a cameo. Kevin Bacon was famous by this point.
Yeah, I was like Kevin Bacon. Oh my gosh, I forgot he was in this one.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, that is true of New York in that it is just busier than you ever imagine it's going to be, and louder.
Yeah,
I mean, all you hear is fucking car horns. Honestly,
everything.
Yeah, it's just car horns constantly. It's so busy the whole time. I was there in a different year, but a week after this. I was there the weekend, like 8 or 9 days after Thanksgiving, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Things that you would have like. It would be so busy as well because it's Thanksgiving. Everyone's trying to get home.
Of course, yes, but I mean it is very, very busy. That's no surprise. I mean, Central London's the same.
Yeah,
but they're all very horn happy, so it's louder than London. It's louder than Central London. But yeah, this is really all you see of New York, apart from the you do see the airport in a minute, and Chicago is largely represented by only two things: his home, and you do see the above air, the sort of metro line that they've got there, which everyone thinks New York has a version of and doesn't. Spider-Man 2 has a lot to answer for. And I've seen that in TV shows like ER and stuff like that. When they go home after shifts, they'd get on that train. But
that doesn't really exist.
You can no, the Chicago one does. I'm saying I've seen that because ER was set in Chicago, wasn't it?
Yeah. I've been on that train.
Yeah, so
Chicago, it's a very amazing city.
Yeah.
It also features in that sitcom.
Sitcom in Chicago?
I can't remember its name. Sorry, that's really bad. I need to scrap that.
I don't know. Is it a relatively new sitcom?
No.
Okay. Thing is, after all this, we'll find out you meant Cheers and it's Boston.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just lost his cap. And then, the sequence that was paid, it was quite a long bit, the Barry Norman show, because I think it went from him spotting Kevin Bacon and the fact that he was his competition for a cab to him chasing here. And I think it went to sort of BBC and the year, somewhere around here, where he drops his bags. So we actually saw, that was the first I saw of it. The surprise when I first saw the film is how straight Steve Martin is playing this.
So that sitcom was Married with Children.
Oh, okay.
Because we did a tour of the city, and they're like, "Oh yes, this is where because there's a big fountain," and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is where the opening of Married with Children was filmed." And I was like, I couldn't remember the theme tune, that's why I had a mental blank. And I was like, "No, it's not called Love and Marriage, it's called Married with Children."
My wife was saying to me a year or two ago, because I was showing her different sitcoms and films, and she was trying to tell me about an American sitcom they got in Romania. She had this slight doubt that it was American, but she was fairly sure. And of course, she gave me the anglicised version of the Romanian name for the show.
Oh.
And after countless times, it turned out it was Married with Children. But it's called something completely different over there, and then it's a Romanian word for whatever that title is.
Also, there's always like the original title. I mean, I remember having this discussion with a colleague of mine a while ago.
I just want to interrupt to say his boy looks like a clone of John Denver.
Yeah, he does.
He's going to grow up to be John Denver.
He's been in lots of different things, hasn't he? He's been in loads of different things. Yeah, films have they might have the American title. I mean, like in Japan, films are kind of given different names, for example. But there was a sort of film or TV show about Dr. Kevorkian with Al Pacino, I seem to remember. And like over here, it's called You Didn't Know Jack or something like that. But in like Czech Republic or Poland or wherever, it was called Dr. Death. So like there's international titles, and there's like anglicised versions of, or
it's like Jaws in France, it translates as Teeth of the Sea.
Well, that's it, exactly. There's a translation, but also like
for
Bond films, for
title,
example. Yeah, that's a much better title, definitely. The sea has teeth, chomp chomp. But Bond films, for example, have international titles, or they might have the translation in that language of that country of the English title. So it's always quite interesting. I find that really fascinating, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, they are playing a little bit against type here, both of them. He's playing very straight and a bit uptight, and the Dale Griffiths character, he's a little bit slobby, but he's not quite. No, he's he's more of a guy's guy most of the time.
Not quite Uncle Buck.
Yeah, he's kind of irritating here. He's got that silly laugh.
It's kind of like roles, they sort of became known for, really, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, Steve Martin was just so physical at his peak. And it's funny to watch him now because it's entertaining enough. I can't remember if it was on Netflix or Disney or whatever, but he does like a live show with Martin Short, who he obviously does Only Murders in the Building with.
I need to see that.
And it's him, but it's just different because he's a lot older now. He used to be very clownish, and The Jerk is
he used to do like a lot of physical comedy, didn't he?
I was going to say he kind of went from transition from one of his early roles where he's like really kind of like silly and over the top,
Yeah.
and he kind of settled like in these kind of roles where he's like a bit more like the guy in this situation just getting fed up and frustrated and just grinting through everything.
Yeah, I mean, even Bowfinger would fall into that to some degree. He's a bit of a grifter, but he's getting frustrated trying to do something.
Father of the Bride kind of thing, that kind of
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was it Parenthood or something, the Ron Howard film came out the following year, and I was looking forward to it because it's a Steve Martin film, and all the trailers were him on the roof messing around with toy guns and stuff, and then I saw the film and it was like heartwarming, if you like, that was its genre, if you like, but it was really quite boring, and his 90s output until sort of Bowfinger was nowhere near as strong. I'm not sure if I've seen all of Father of the Bride. I remember the woman in it was fit.
There's quite a few of those films, aren't there?
I remember it made me cry as a kid.
Right.
Yeah. So the kid who plays his son plays the teenage son in Mrs. Doubtfire. I was thinking, where have I seen him before?
That's 6 years after, so yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to think, where else have I seen? Obviously, he's teenage boy. But I was like, where have I seen him? Oh, yeah.
There's always films you don't get round to, or if you do, you get round to them much later. I mentioned The Breakfast Club. I don't think I saw Mrs. Doubtfire till about 4 years ago.
What?
Yeah, I've seen it.
No, I know. No,
but we talked about it at the time, I think, because I was like, I had not seen it. What was the other one we talked about a lot? The Rocketeer. I only saw that about 4 or 5 years ago. First 2 or 3 years of the show didn't talk about it.
So.
Yeah, there's always a few
it's like having
like
2
that.
minutes. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It depends on like your taste, and depends on like your age and that as well. Like, I mean, things like that sort of is very much like 90s fare sort of stuff. You know, I would have grown up with, but obviously you're a little bit older than myself.
Yeah.
Films that like perhaps just weren't on my radar at the time.
The sweet spot of stuff I'm likely.
I wasn't born.
The sweet spot for stuff I'm likely to have missed is probably between about 91, 92 and about 95, 96, 97, somewhere around there, because that's as you go into your mid to late teens, and you're getting much more films and art, and you ain't watching when you're in that state. You're not going to be watching Mrs. Doubtfire and Jurassic Park. You're not.
No. Unless you're and me.
Yeah, but again, you were a lot younger. That is rude. He's just taken his socks off on the plane.
Yeah, that's
That's
I'd
grim.
be like, right, I want to move.
Oh, I can't stand smelly people more than almost anything in the world. That actor next to him I recognise, wasn't he Bill, whatever he's called? He was in an episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation. Do you recognise that actor leaning on his shoulder?
Yeah, he's been, I can't think of his name.
Bill something.
No, he did look familiar.
I need to look that guy up. He lived to a really, really good age.
Bill Irwin.
That's it.
Yeah, he's been in loads of stuff. There we go.
When did he die, Chris? Have you got it?
No, I'm gonna pull it up. Try and pull it up.
Because he did live to a great age, or he was one of those actors like Wilfred Brimley who looked a lot older than he was.
He died in 2010. Right.
Oh wow, it's very recent then.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is 23 years before, and he looks about 80 there.
And he was 96.
Well, I wasn't far wrong then, was I? He was in his 70s there then. Yeah, he was in an early series of Star Trek: The Next Generation on the Enterprise crew, I think.
He was.
There are some of those actors who, as you say, like Wilfred Brimley, just kind of look the same.
But I've never noticed him before.
He's got the same sort of look to him.
Yeah, he was in Naked Gun 33 and a third.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Dennis the Menace.
The American one, yeah.
Yeah.
For Americans listening who don't know what we're talking about, you've got a character called Dennis the Menace, right? Which was made into a live-action film. The cartoon over here was just referred to as Dennis because we have a comic strip character from the 60s called Dennis the Menace. Yeah, and it's a different character.
So kind of similar, basically. It's like basically a naughty kid, but
basically, but very, very, very different designs.
Yeah, definitely. Beano.
The Beano, you need to
Beano
look up,
comics.
yeah. See our version.
So, what's everyone's favourite Steve Martin film then?
Oh gosh.
I would say The Jerk, but I don't think the last sort of 20 minutes, half an hour of that film's particularly good. But that's the one I laughed at most. I first saw it. It came on BBC Two. 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, can't remember which now, on BBC Two one night, and I was watching it in my room. And I went out for like a drink at the end of it, and my mother was in the kitchen, right? But I think she was getting a drink just before bed. It's probably about 10:30 or something. Yeah, I imagine it was a 9 o'clock film because there's adult content in it, and it was probably leading into Newsnight or something. And I must have stood telling her the plot of the film for 20 minutes and all the funniest jokes, because I laughed so hard at it. It's that one, The Man with Two Brains, All of Me and Bowfinger. They're probably my favourite 4. In the tier below that, I'd put Roxanne, The Man with... Roxanne, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, which is like a film...
Oh, that's a classic. Spoof. Yeah, that's probably one of my favourites.
What are you doing? Adjusting your breasts. Yes. I'd probably put...
And you can't, only the classic footage can't be changed. So. Yeah.
But there's 3 or 4 of his films that I struggle to separate. But if I could only ever watch one of his again, it would probably be The Jerk. What about you guys? Although Bowfinger did make me laugh.
Oh gosh.
I've got a real soft spot for Three Amigos.
Yeah.
I saw that at the cinema. I must admit, I've not seen it since. I saw it at the age of nearly 10 at the cinema. Not seen it since.
Yeah, the Three Amigos never played. Probably this, perhaps.
I think as well. I think of a Steve Martin film with the possible exception. It's not even the exception of Bowfinger because he is the lead in that film. Eddie Murphy's very much the second. But I always think of films being he's the lead. He's the first one we met here, even though there's 2 of them. The Three Amigos, of course, there's 3 of them, so I don't often think of it as a Steve Martin film. I tend to think of it as a Chevy Chase film, and that might be because when it came out, I'd just seen the sort of first 2 vacation films, so it was like the Chevy Chase film. But I've not seen it in 35 years.
I think it's that, or I do actually like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
See, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah,
that would go up there. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is really funny.
Because both those films kind of have that balance between the 2 different Steve Martins. The wacky and the more like sort of playing a straight man kind of thing.
Yeah, it just shows like the diversity of his
If you
skills,
look at Bowfinger, he's kind of a con man, and he is that in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. But then there are scenes where he's got to play like
stupid or dumb.
Dumb. I was trying to think of a pleasant word for it, but let's not bother. Yeah, he plays an idiot. And it's just one of those things.
Now this is how this film was set in the 80s. You don't use his machines anymore. That's probably certainly over here in the UK. GDPR won't allow it.
No, yeah, they used to use those sort of things where they drag a sort of thing across your card and it would imprint.
They're really common at the time, but now
they were. Well, we didn't have any electronic card readers. It's funny. I moved back to Plymouth in my mid to late 20s, something like that, and we had sort of cards, but we were still signing for them. And yet chip and pin lasted for ages, and now it's all contactless, and it just all moves on.
No, credit cards and bank cards and everything didn't really sort of become more commonplace till like maybe the late 80s, very early 90s, certainly over here.
Yeah, my parents' generation got paid in cash. That was it.
It was really interesting.
I don't know. What you have to pay a bill by going to the post office or something? Fuck that.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I just think, what?
But when you looked, and I don't know how, you didn't have card machines, so you'd have to go into your bank to find out what your bank balance was.
Yeah, you didn't have that information at your fingertips. Like
if you knew your bank balance and it was say 500 quid, that was it till you spent some more money. Whereas now we look at our bank balance and we've forgotten the 4 direct debits that are coming out in the middle of the month.
Half the time we don't even check. We're like, oh no, I just don't want to look. It's like it's the most easiest way you can check it at any time, but you just
you still forget anything.
Oh, my bank balance.
Not look.
I don't use my bank balance. Years ago, because I was so bad with money, and the final straw was I wrote a cheque for something. That's how long ago it was, and I was up near an overdraft limit. I'd had an overdraft as a student, and this cheque didn't get paid in for about 3 months. I'd forgotten about it.
Oh, God.
And it took me over my overdraft limit and I was fined and everything else. So I thought, right, get a loan, pay off that overdraft, pay off your credit card and have a fucking spreadsheet with what you spent on it. My bank balance does not tell me how much money I've got. The spreadsheet does. Although I reconcile it now and again, because what you've got on the 5th of a month, I try and get as much coming out at the start, but there are still things you bought mid-month and it renews and stuff.
Vibrating bed, oh my gosh.
I think you're.
There's an episode of The Simpsons where that.
We've just gone. Dell is just sort of taking his pillow out of his case,
Oh, okay.
And Steve Martin's just put soap in his eyes, or around his eyes, and of course the water's cut out.
It gets soap in my eye.
And now he's going to
pause it a little bit.
Oh, come on, yeah. It hasn't started, I'll tell you. He's just putting down the photo of his wife, which does look a bit sort of stock photo, doesn't it?
Okay, let me know when Steve Martin gets out of the shower and I'll play it again.
Okay, now it's come on like either cold or hot, I'm not really sure what. No, it's hot, I think, because you could stomach cold.
Oh.
And now he's put some money in the vibrating bed.
I
remember...
That happens in The Simpsons episode.
Hotels like this do appear to be just from films, but I have stayed in one like it. I remember years ago driving across the Canadian border into America.
Cool.
There's another long story I won't bore you with, but I had tickets to go to the Canadian Grand Prix, just free practice.
Wow.
And they messed me about, and it was a horrible experience, and I went, sod it. And I drove down to Boston, but I stopped about halfway for a hotel, and it was totally like this.
Yeah, some of those, I think we've done something similar.
Was it cheap?
It cheap? It was cheap, though. Yeah.
Well, they are literally just like a bed for the night, aren't they? And that's it.
Yeah. This isn't terrible. You can make do with it. But it's where he puts it's with the pants on his face and stuff. It's just grim.
It's disgusting, isn't it? You just think, oh.
I know.
And they're not very clean either.
It's just that personal boundaries thing, and I don't know if this is true of all Americans as well, but certainly Neil Page almost plays a bit British in this. We're big on our boundaries. It's not just sharing a bed with a stranger. That can't be helped. That's just the way things are. But like their pants in the sink and not sharing out the towels and all that. It's just like that. This is all just kryptonite to a Brit. We hate this sort of thing.
Kryptonite. F off.
Yeah. And then he of course he snores. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
Beer can. So the wet is the beer's. It's now wet. The bed.
But they play off each other really well. I mean, that's why this film has endured through the decades, you know. And it's kind of one that we come back to, not us here on the podcast, but, you know, film fans and, you know, fans that are come back to time and time again. You know, it's still, even though it's a Thanksgiving film, you know, holiday film, it's not ostensibly, certainly over here, a Christmas film. It's still, what, you know, why it remains hugely popular and still loved to this day. So
I would say, I've still always thought at the end of the film where he takes pity on him and takes him home, I still think like he's still going to be fucking massively irritated by him for the couple of days he's with him. He's just doing him a favour, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just being nice.
You don't imagine them building this amazing friendship that goes beyond this.
Yeah, it's going to be like an hour into him inviting his own. He's already like, oh, can't wait to get this guy out.
Yeah, can't wait to get rid of him.
And I tell you what, in Britain, even millionaires can't afford that fucking house.
No, oh my gosh. I was like these films, kind of like Home Alone or like Father of the Bride or Doubtfire, anything like that. Any sort of, I've never seen these, you know, raft of American films in the sort of late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, you always live in unrealistic houses.
It's just like massive, even like something like Fresh Prince.
At least in Fresh Prince,
like those sort of like sitcoms and things like that.
At least in Fresh Prince, they are actually like wealthy. They are like.
No, exactly, but they all, you know, just in other sort of like sitcoms, certainly of like you know, on Disney Channel and that sort of thing, aimed at teens, you know, sort of my generation, sort of growing up in the 90s, they all had these massive houses.
I mean, obviously it depends where you live. I mean, I knew someone. I spent some time in Oklahoma over there, for example, and they could get houses 3 times the size of what we get here for similar money, and that would have only grown because in the 7 or 8 years since then, our economy's got far worse, far faster, but it's things like, and the person I knew over there would say things like, well, yeah, that house was built in 96, so it's smaller. So A, they'd consider 96 an older house, and B, houses are getting bigger. Here, houses are getting smaller.
It's going the other way.
Yeah. The square footage of my house would be equivalent to like a couple of bedroom flat that I stayed in over there.
But
it's crazy, isn't it? It is crazy.
But it's the same sort of thing. If you like, say, go, it's like Becca was saying in sitcoms and like
in the major cities, you wouldn't be able to get a big house at all.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, particularly like in New York, and then like they're all like this lush, and it's like, you know, people, and it involves like a character who's like struggling to get a job, but he still managed to live in Manhattan in this big plush like apartment building. You're thinking like, No fucking way.
Oh no. But then, I don't know. I mean, whatever your views on a show like Friends, would anyone really have watched it if they were living in a fucking shoebox?
No.
You know? But we've
Would've been
got
a
it in
different
London.
show,
Yeah, London, you get the odd flat where it's like, you know, fucking 6 feet wide or something. You know? Micro houses.
Yeah, we
But
lived in a couple of
the thing is, right, Dales looks very hurt here, and that sort of makes you feel some sympathy. But if you had no reaction shots of him, you'd actually completely sympathise with Neil, because this guy is fucking irritating at this point.
a bit of a pain. But they learn to love each other, it's alright.
Even physically. Those aren't pillows.
That's not a pillow.
I've never known if that means his hands between his testicles or just between his legs.
I do not know.
I always assumed it meant just between his legs, between two pillows.
Yeah, I do think John Candy does a great job here of being like, obviously he's playing up like the irritating kind of buffoon kind of guy.
But now he looks like a hurt child. He's just like, I can't believe how cruel you've just been to me.
He does have this like naive kind of, but also like innocence. Like he is just, there's something like a bit wholesome. He's just oblivious to how annoying he is, and there's something kind of real to how he sort of portrays that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
definitely.
You can believe there's people like him. You know.
You sometimes get that with like salesmen and that, though.
Mm.
I mean, they made that a plot point. Of course, I'm not talking about real life. I'm just talking about a plot. When they brought David Brent back from the British version of The Office, or the original version, when they brought him back in Life on the Road, it was actually dropped by one of the other salesmen that the customers absolutely love him, and it's because he's out there being like gregarious and trying to get enjoyment out of life.
Mm.
And the thing is as well, what puts this into context, I'm not trying to be too heavy about what is a comedy, but at the end of the film where you find out what he's been doing for years, he's been pretty much on his own, hasn't he?
Mm.
He's not had contact. He's got all these tics that his wife probably put up with because she loved him, or perhaps they've got worse, because you do get strange when you're on your own a long time. You do start picking up ways. I don't even know how to go into more depth than that.
It's like getting louder, isn't it? You
just
get noticed.
I just think, I know in my case I had to relearn how to live with someone, whereas it was quite natural once upon a time. And if he's not used to being around people, he's probably not like knowing. Of course he puts the pants in his sink. He's just staying in rooms by himself.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably why he's just oblivious to it. He's just not used to it.
But
No, you say he's got to relearn that skill.
if he'd have travelled with anyone else, he wouldn't have had half the problems he's having. I mean, he just continues to screw everything up really badly. We're coming up to the GIF I used to promote this show.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I forgot they got stoned. They got burgled here. I forgot this. Yeah, the guy's just rifling through what looks like Dell's wallet. Now, so that's where we are on the film. We don't even really. Where did they go? Where did they end up landing? They couldn't land at O'Hare, could they? Where did they land? Did they? I can't remember. I don't even remember where they are now.
What's the thing when we're talking over it, not we?
Not really paying attention.
I mean, look at that. He's got cigarettes there, and he's been eating constantly.
Wichita. They're Wichita at the moment.
Okay. I'm just gonna have
It's almost a bit of a travelogue as well, isn't it? Because you do go around.
I need to get
various
my
locations.
I need to get my bearings, because obviously I know of Wichita, but I've got to place it relative to everything else. Kansas, so they went nowhere near it, really.
Wichita linesman.
Okay. I say not that near it. It's reasonably near, I suppose. Let's look up that Ohio and just check how far close they are. Oh, not Illinois, not fucking Ohio. What am I thinking of? Yeah, it's a couple of states apart.
Yeah, it's massive, great big houses.
I love that. See that Bears game?
How about them Bears?
The funny thing is, it's a type of comedy that is now seemed the way they've done it here, because they're relative strangers who've just shared a bed. You would probably still get away with it, but I've heard it said about Friends and other things like that in a way that I don't think you'd write it in a sitcom now. The gay panic, we mustn't look gay. The last new thing I saw it in, as in really most recent, was Blades of Glory, the Will Ferrell film, where two men had to dance together, and it was all like, oh my god, his penis is quite near his face when they dance and stuff. I'm about as liberal as they come, but it's a sort of, I don't think it's a bad humour at all. I think it's quite funny to see relatively alpha males still panicking. The joke is on them, not us. When they get up and they're like, see the Bears game, and putting their voice deeper, I don't see anything unacceptable about that. It's funny.
Yeah, something like that today, it might not, might not appear today, but that was just how it was at the time.
John Candy's own father died in his 30s of a heart attack. It ran in the family, and he was a heavy smoker. I'm just noticing watching him smoking there, and I'm just thinking like, with what we know now, it was awful. And the medical profession used to beg him to lose weight. And
mid-30s is no age.
It was a mixture.
Early 40s no age.
It was a mixture of he struggled to, but on top of that, I think there was a bit of, well, I'm a big comedian. I have to stay big. Because I remember in Cheers, George Wendt was required to stay a certain weight.
Oh God, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he couldn't have come back weighing like 170 pounds or something.
I suppose they have an image to maintain, literally.
Yeah. But yeah, he dropped dead. He was making, I don't know what was he making. Was he making Canadian bacon? I can't remember what he was making when he died.
Yeah.
No, Wagons East. He was making.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was the last. That must have been the last thing came. It was weird because I remember watching Cool Runnings and he had already died.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because he died in something like March '94, and I think Cool Runnings may have been a summer film that year. Let's have a look. Cool Runnings is a pretty decent film, but I've only seen it once.
Yeah, it's a good film from what I remember.
I have only seen it once.
I expect it will probably be on Disney Plus. Other streaming platforms are available.
Its United States release date was for October the 1st, 93, so that's while he was still alive.
Oh, okay.
But
so it might come out.
Still in a different era. We may have got it months later. Who knows? Let's have a look. I'm going to have a look on IMDb.
Like a sort of 4-6 months.
.com/Cool Runnings.
Thank you.
There's normally a big list of release dates on the IMDb pages. It doesn't help how cold it looks. You know what I mean? They're sat out just on their cases and just freezing.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's Dylan Baker.
He hasn't arrived yet. He's about to. Dylan Baker. Well done.
He's like one of those great character actors who pops up in
I've never put it together. Dylan Baker was in the original Tobey Maguire films, and he would have become Doc Ock if he'd stayed in it. He was Kirk Connors in the the one with the one arm. I don't know what else he's been in, to be fair, but
You mean the lizard?
The lizard.
What did I say?
Doc Ock.
Oh, that's ridiculous. No, I did mean the lizard. I was picturing the lizard as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because he got recast.
All right. Well, Chris,
stayed?
it's entirely possible because the UK release date of Cool Runnings was the 25th of February, not a leap year, so only 3 days before the end of the month, end of February, and he died on March the 4th.
Oh no!
So unless you saw it in its opening week, he was already dead.
I saw it at the cinema.
Yeah, but literally, it came out 1 week to the day until he died.
When he passed away.
I might be, yeah.
Wagons, he said he caused a death. Heart attack in his sleep, that's one.
Oh, gosh.
And he binge eat when he was struggling. He weighed in excess of 300 pounds at some point. I don't know how tall he was. He had a strong family history of it, although he was unaware of his genetic risk. He smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, obesity, drank heavy alcohol, and he did use cocaine occasionally.
Oh, God.
And he dieted and exercised with trainers because of his family history, but nothing obviously took. He was very big when he did Wagons East. I've never seen Wagons East. I think the film bombed. Oh, it's got Richard Lewis in it, you know, the guy who's in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, that guy.
I always think of him as Prince John in What We've Heard When the Tights.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we've had this conversation before. I'm not convinced I've seen Men in Tights. I still don't think I've seen it. But
that's my favourite scenes coming up, where they're like all frozen and the dog's frozen as well.
Yeah, the whole spitting and thing is horrible.
Especially because we've had that cold snap recently here in the UK. That's kind of how we feel a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, it's been really cold here. We've just there's a worldwide thing. I don't know how it's hitting in the United States, because obviously you've got more of your own sort of oil and gas, but our electricity and gas bills have gone up like about fivefold, and they're about to go up again.
Board, really.
We are all struggling, so we've gone into the winter, and official government advice is to keep your rooms at 19 degrees in Celsius, of course, with how we deal with it here. So that would be something like 68, I imagine, something like that.
And some suppliers are paying their customers to not use electricity during certain points in the day.
People can't afford it. It's just like people cannot afford it. Yeah, Ira Newborn did the music for this film. This is his go-to person, and he did do the Naked Gun films as well. Ace Ventura, okay. And his last film was Basketball.
You know what? I never made that connection.
Yeah.
Oh, Basketball,
Basketball did make me laugh. I've only seen it once, but it made me laugh. It really did. What was the Orgasmo? I didn't find funny, but Basketball I did.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, I didn't find it very funny, but I saw it. I'd not long moved back to
South
Plymouth.
Park, and then that, and then
I think it was I had a Blockbuster around the corner, and I did rent Basketball. I know I did. The cinematographer of this also did Flashdance Splash. Best Defense, we've talked about that before. Cocoon, Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, She's Having a Baby, Point Break.
Oh wow.
Get Shorty, Men in Black.
That's why it looks so good.
Now let's go to the cast now.
It is amazing to think, like, sort of the people who shot like all these varied amount of films, then you wouldn't have known it.
It's incredible, isn't it? It is incredible.
But then, you know, there are certain artists out there who are meant to have a recognisable style, and some who aren't. You know what I mean? And cinematographers should be serving who they're working more than anything else.
Yeah, it depends on the director, I think.
Dylan Baker, just looking at his films, Road to Perdition, Sam Reed.
Yeah, he's got the real variety.
That's a good film. Happiness I've not seen. 13 Days is a really good film. It's about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
I think I've heard it, but sadly I've not seen it.
I've got a feeling Kevin Costner's in that one. It's it's really good.
Yeah.
Done a lot of theatre. He was on Murder One, the Stephen Bochco TV show. CSI, The West Wing. I don't remember him on The West Wing, but then he might have only appeared in a couple of things. What else? Planes, Trains and Automobiles. This was his second film. His first film was Ishtar.
Ishtar?
Yeah.
Ishtar.
Yeah, that is a notorious film.
His name I can't pronounce. Ishtar.
It's probably worth seeing for the just the fact you've seen it.
He's been in some good films. He was in Kinsey, the Liam Neeson film, The Matador.
Oh gosh.
Obviously we know about the Spider-Man films. Revolutionary Road, so obviously Sam Mendes likes working with him. Anchorman 2, don't remember him in that.
Oh no, yeah, I don't. He had a slight cameo role.
Who's this? Who are you talking about?
Dylan Baker.
Oh, okay.
He's popped up in very lots of different things.
Layla Robbins, the one who plays his wife, is familiar to me, but I don't know what I've seen her in. She was in a film in 1995 called Live Nude Girls, but I'd only watch it for the article. I'd only watch it for the articles, of course.
Was that on Channel 4 late at night?
She was in A Call to Spy a couple of years ago. I reviewed that for Set the Tape. I reviewed that film. I don't remember much about it now. She was in Homeland.
Ooh.
As a US ambassador. A lot of theatre. This is awful, that Trump. Do you remember, it makes me think of. I thought of this film when I went to see Stan and Ollie, and they were bringing that. They were at one of the British train stations, and they carried a trunk very like that up all these steps.
Oh yeah.
And then dropped it, and Stan is like, "Do we need it?" Yeah, Burley Owen as Man on Plane. I thought that was a really strange sort of little role for him. He's a well-known actor by then.
But around these sort of times, he kept having like sort of little roles.
Yeah.
Up here and there.
I'm literally looking to see what I know. Oh, this is so funny where he sings, where he gets caught looking at that couple. And it's Dell's fault. He goes, look at this. He's minding his own business. And Dell goes, look at that, just as he's caught. And he doesn't want to look, but he can't help it now. And then he sings a song, and that doesn't go down well. And then Dell sings, and he's a man of the people. He sings the Flintstones, and it goes really well. Conductor in Nicky Gunn. So he was the conductor at the Oscars ceremony, Bill Owen, in that film. The film's not as good as the first two, but the Oscars set piece at the end is funny. Who did he play in? Christ, he's done a lot of stuff, Bill Owen, but then he was around a long time. I'm still waiting for Moonlighting to come to TV. Talking of them.
That's another one, sadly, I'd never seen. It's on my list. I know it's
Remember Me,
now,
that's it. I was trying to place what episode of The Next Generation he was in. And he was in the episode where something happens to Beverly, where everyone in the crew is like disappearing, and only she's noticing. Like it's a crew of 1,000 people or something, and then it's not. It's 200 and something, and like Worf disappears, and no one's ever heard of him. And then like this doctor who's coming to visit her disappears as well, and it's him. Seinfeld, Lois and Clark. Jesus, he did a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, but that's just relatively modern. You go back to the 60s and find him in Gunsmoke and stuff like that. St. Louis, so they're in Missouri now. And this is pretty cool. They're short of money, so he just sells everything. Like he just goes and sells a load of like shower rings as earrings. And he
it was the 80s, you know. It was the 1980s.
Yeah, there's a bit of social satire in it because largely he's selling it to quite vapid women. These are filled with helium. Darryl Strawberry earring. I mean, wasn't Darryl Strawberry a baseball player?
Yeah, he was in an episode of The Simpsons as
well.
He
was. One with Ken Griffey Jr. That's the only reason me and Becca could name any fucking baseball players apart from Babe Ruth. They were a load of them were in an episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah, surname of Strawberry and the first name of Babe. The reason why we know.
Yeah, Babe Ruth, Darryl Strawberry, yeah. Ken Griffey Jr. We don't remember most of the rest of them.
Who else?
Baseball has no cultural footprint in this country at all. You'll find people who watch NFL, not a lot of them, but comparatively, but there are fans of it. I'm friends with people who are fans of it. The Super Bowl will get a certain number of people staying up to watch it. It's got a fan base, but it's small. Baseball, hardly at all. I can't think of anyone I have ever spoken to who watches baseball.
It's just rounders though, isn't it?
Rounders.
Well, they throw the ball
They're
under
pretty good. Like, what?
rounders.
You what, mate?
It's like basketball. We have a national basketball league here, and it has, but it's kind of niche. And some people watch NBA, but baseball, for some reason, just has no footprint here at all, or relatively none.
Yeah, maybe
NFL and
very
NBA.
niche. I'm sure there is a following, but it's
it's like cricket. I bet cricket's got like no cultural relevance in.
No, there's like 11 countries that play it, or something like that. 12. 13, somewhere in that range. Basically, cricket is massive in like Pakistan, India, Australia, New Zealand, and then very big in a few other places like, well, the West Indies here, but again, only England. Where else? Sri Lanka. There aren't many. There really aren't many. The biggest problem, because we're not exposed to many of the sports, it's a bit like cricket. People will watch 10 minutes of cricket and go, I don't get that at all. And the bowler will finish like his over, his 6 balls, and then the figures will come up and it will be OMRW or something with numbers under it. So people don't really know what they're looking at. And it was a bit of a revelation to me with US football that like it's really simple. Not all of the positions in plays don't understand most of those, but the basic principle, but the basics of what you're trying to achieve is really, really straightforward.
Like with American football, I'm not a big fan of the whole stop-start aspect to it.
No, but basketball, I think a lot of Americans will watch what they know as soccer and go, well, there's not enough goals. But basketball has the opposite problem. There's way too much scoring in it to be of any interest. They run up one end and they score, and then they run up the other end and they score, and then they run up the other end and miss, and so on. And that's that. We don't want that. We want them to be a rare thing of beauty.
We want the tension.
Yeah.
And you have to watch rugby, where you have to score a try. So.
Well, I did watch. I literally watched one Super Bowl, but if I tell you the halftime act was Gloria Estefan, it will tell you it was a while ago.
Oh gosh. That was a long time ago.
The following year, the halftime act was Michael Jackson.
Oh wow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Didn't Roseanne Barr do one and upset a lot of people?
Oh, she sang the national anthem off key and thought that was funny.
Quite a few people.
Well, they're a bit funny about their flags and anthems, and I'm not really critiquing it. I'm just saying we're not the same here. But if someone did that to our anthem, we'd be a mixture of bemused, laughing at the stupidity of it, and probably thinking that wasn't actually that funny, but I suppose I have laughed a bit.
Yeah, we're just a bit offended.
That's it. We wouldn't be going apeshit.
We laugh, but for the wrong reasons.
We'd be laughing at like they honestly think that's a comedy bit, but we're not precious about our flags. I couldn't believe it when I went to the United States how many flags you've got. It's a big thing.
No, they are incredibly patriotic.
Yeah,
I mean,
nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
It's just different. Here, if I see like a Union Jack flag hanging from a pole outside someone's house, I just assume a racist lives there. And to be fair, that is probably a fair assumption.
The only time you sort of see it really is, like for example, you'll see it a lot during the King's coronation coming up next May.
And stuff, yeah.
Obviously, the World Cup, we've had England playing, or any kind of during the Olympics, or any kind of sporting event. Maybe St George's Day, perhaps. But back to
the film. Right, Neil has suddenly fucking lost it because like he's got there and his car's not there. We've just seen him throwing the ticket away, but haven't really noticed it. He's now walking back on quite a dangerous piece of road. Now he's going to slide down some snow and ice.
Oh, that's so funny.
So he's going to get back in a bit of a state. He's been taken to obviously the furthest fucking car parking area away from the airport. So he's got a hell of a walk back. Not pedestrian friendly. You do find that in some cities in the States as well. It's just not built for not having a car. Some of them. His hat's just been run over. And then he absolutely loses it with the woman. And that is probably the funniest bit of the film.
It's hilarious. She does kind of bear the brunt of most of his anger.
Yeah. But it's
considering this is a 15 as well, there's quite... Obviously it's an F-bomb. But there's quite a lot of F-bombs in this
I don't know how many you're allowed in a 15. I know in like a 12 it's
I think they're all concentrated in this one scene.
I don't even get the logic of it.
That fall would break something. He would have broken something with that.
Yeah,
fall.
he would have.
Yeah, he would have definitely. No, it's very, very, very well played.
He went grey. He went white very young, Chris. I think he's younger than either of us here.
Mm.
But he might just be about your age now. He didn't become. It's quite a nice story with him because obviously he had a marriage fail in the early 90s, didn't he, to Victoria Tennant, who's in LA Story. But he found love a lot later, and he became a father in his mid-60s. He is a father now. This woman is so fucking irritating as well. And she's got that cheesy customer service voice.
Ugh.
And here he goes. You can start off your fucking rosy fucking cheeks. A fucking Datsun, a fucking Toyota, a fucking Mazda. Yeah. I don't care for the way you're speaking. Yeah. But he's finally cracked. And actually, you don't see this much from Steve Martin in any of his films. The Man with Two... Have you both seen The Man with Two Brains?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's really funny.
I don't think I have either, unfortunately.
Right, The Man with Two Brains, he's widowed, right? His wife dies before the events of the film. And he's a brain surgeon. But he's like an absolute genius brain surgeon. He's patented a new screw top technique where you like literally unscrew the top of their head, do brain surgery and screw it up again. And this woman at the start of the film, played by Kathleen Turner, is taunting her much older husband. Now, I'm not sure if it's the same guy, because I haven't seen it for a long time, but he reminds me of the guy in the Cannonball Run, the one who's trying to get the Cannonball Run stopped. The grey-haired one in that film. The one who's like, it's a titty turnout, terrific turnout, that guy. And she gets hit by a car, right? She's obviously like an absolute bitch. And he performs brain surgery on her and falls in love with her. Okay. And they get married, and she is an absolute bitch to him, right? And there's some really funny set pieces I won't spoil. There's one with him breaking glass, which I won't spoil, but it's really funny. And then he falls in love with a brain in a jar that only he can communicate with, and that's voiced by Sissy Spacek.
Oh, wow.
And it just goes from there. It's got the one who was in Titanic, who died not that long ago. He was also in Star Trek episodes. Who died recently? He was in Star Trek 6 as well.
Oh, yeah, I've certainly lost quite a few people recently.
Who's the guy who's in... He's one of... he's the one who handcuffs Leo. He works with Billy Zane.
Okay, I think I know who you mean.
David Warner?
Yeah, he's in it. As this... And basically a load of women are getting killed, but they're getting killed for their brains by David Warner's character, it turns out. And he falls in love with one of the brains. And it's just really funny. And he's like trying to find a body to put this brain in. So he goes up to like a prostitute and says, can I see a little bit more? And she just opens her coat and she's naked. But she talks like that. So he doesn't want to be with her. And it's just a really, really madcap screwball film. All of Me is... Have you seen All of Me, either of you?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
Right, that's where half his body gets taken over by Lily Tomlin.
Oh, God, okay.
So it's the ultimate physical performance because he's only controlling half of his body.
Brilliant.
She's controlling the other half. And he's trying to get turned on to do something with a woman. So his brain...
It sounds very much like Carl Pilkington pitch.
It is the love of two brains, right? But he's gone with Steve Warren and Rebecca de Tomlin. Yeah. Victoria Tennant's in that film. I think that's where they met. So that's like his golden era. The Jerk was 79. Okay. All of Me's 84. Roxanne is 86, but it's a slightly less physical performance. He's already sort of transitioning away. It's that first 4 years. The great one is Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. It's like film noir, but he'll pick up the phone and
I've seen that bit.
They'll intercut a scene from another film. So he's chatting with Humphrey Bogart.
And obviously those scenes can't be changed.
Yeah.
I think it's really cleverly done.
Oh, this is where he fucks the seat. But yeah, we do have people, without getting too heavy, we've always got people who can't afford, at any price there are people who can't afford things, but there are people who really can't afford to heat their homes at the moment, and we've just had a massive cold snap by British standards. I tried to get off the estate last Saturday and it was really tough. I was due to go and see Avatar and I missed the first screening. Got there for the second one, was due at a football match afterwards. Oh. Didn't know until I came out of the cinema whether the game was still on because it had a last minute pitch inspection. And then I had to like get a bus and basically sprint in there and I missed like 3 minutes of the game. But getting off the estate, I walked out of the door and immediately fell over. It was just like sheet ice.
Oh no! Yeah, okay.
My wife took a video again, not to make fun of her. We wouldn't do that. But this car tried to get off our road, couldn't. The woman had obviously got out of her passenger seat. She was obviously being driven by her husband or whatever, and she couldn't stand up. So my wife came back in and said, "This is how bad it is." And it was this woman crawling on her hands and feet, her hands and knees across the road.
Oh, so icy.
Because she couldn't stand. And then the road was caused because of an accident, so the bus I got went a circuitous route, and I ended up in like the 11 o'clock IMAX screening, so it was alright.
No, it's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it, with the weather, especially with the weather as well. Did you have any snow down where you are? Or?
No, it was, yes, we had a little bit, but it was mainly ice.
Chris, did you have any all the way up in Manchester?
It was a smattering, but it wasn't like a lot really.
No, we just had like a really heavy frost. I think maybe had like it was quite wet, a little bit of snow, but it didn't settle, and it's melted now, obviously.
Yeah, no, it was just sheet ice. It rained and then froze. But you could actually see it. You'd look across it and it would look like a skating rink. You don't often see that. It's normally like patches of black ice, but it was just sheer. And I thought, well, I'll be able to walk slowly, plenty of grip, but it's the equivalent of aquaplaning. But none of your foot is in contact with the actual road, so you just slip. But eventually my wife could get off the estate and she got me up to a bus stop so I could get a bus into the game and all the rest of it.
I'm glad you got there safely.
I got there about 10 minutes through the adverts and then 3 hours and 10 minutes of Avatar: The Way of Water. With its variable frame rate.
Yes.
So would you recommend seeing it in like the IMAX, or
Yes.
or would you go in a standard?
No, I would see it in the IMAX. I mean, I've only been in IMAX once or twice because we've had it about 3 years now. But I used to go to a different cinema till fairly recently. I went into the IMAX for the Batman earlier in this year. So I've been in there. I went in there for a re-release of Avatar in September because I thought, let's see that in IMAX and see, remind myself of what 3D was like. 'Cause I haven't seen it that way since 2009, and it was incredibly immersive. Bear in mind, 3D IMAX is taller, so it's more immersive than going and watching it in a normal 3D screen. The variable frame rate, what they're doing is they're running the projector at 48 frames per second, but when they want it to be 24, they just show each image twice. Cameron was interviewed on this. And unlike The Hobbit, the high frame rate looks fine. The big problem is he's constantly swapping between the two. It must have been upwards of 100 times we were getting like a format switch, even within individual scenes. And what it does is both formats are fine, but the problem is when you switch from 48 to 24, suddenly it looks a bit jerky because you've just had it smoother. And when you go from 24 to 48, it suddenly looks kind of hyper real, but your brain does adapt quite quickly. It's more, I can't imagine, particularly with the size of the screen, my peripheral vision wasn't being drawn to anything outside of it. So when we were underwater and so on, it was that much more immersive. I saw Avatar in 2009, didn't like it, saw it 3D. Everyone was raving about the 3D and I was like, it was fine. Well, I don't see the fuss. But over the years, the way it's stored in my memory, and Cameron has talked about this well, it has had an effect. There was something a bit more immersive about it. And I've talked about that on this show before, that it is about immersion. It's not about the wow effect. It isn't about arrows coming out of the screen at you or anything. And he understands that better than anyone. And so I would recommend the IMAX, definitely, as a first viewing, because I cannot see how a 2D screening would be as immersive. And whether you like, hate, or just tolerate the film, if it's ever likely you're going to see it again, you've got a better chance at having immersion in it on a 2D home screen if you have had the proper 3D IMAX immersion in the first place. Because it's already stored in the brain the way it was meant to. I'm not a big advocate of 3D. I'm not a 3D detractor either, but it was just a fucking cash grab after Avatar, everything just being retrofitted.
You still get 30% light loss?
You get some, but it's not that much because they use laser now rather than...
Oh, so it's maybe 10% light loss?
Yeah, there's something, but it's not... It used to be like wearing sunglasses. It's not quite that anymore, but if you pull the glasses forward, it's very slightly brighter. but you forget that quite quickly. I've never been a big 3D advocate. The only other film outside of an animation that ever really did it for me was Life of Pi, because I've always felt for a 3D effect you need that plane. It works very well on water, it works very well in corridors and things like that, because you've got an idea of the depth. Everyone talked about it for that space film with George Clooney, Gravity, but there was no frame of reference, so it didn't actually do anything for me. It's purely about immersion, and I felt very immersed in that world, such that the extreme length of the film wasn't bothering me until the final action sequence, really. I was quite happy hanging out there, and I think that's part of what he's trying to achieve. So I would say if you liked Avatar in any format, and so that there is a shot that you might watch it more than once in your life, even get it the right way the first time. And I would say that about virtually no other film. I can't think of a film, with the possible exception of Life of Pi and maybe some animated ones, where I've thought it mattered. You know, even when it was shot in 3D, it doesn't matter. It doesn't give you anything else. But he is trying to immerse you in a different world. So I think I could speak for IMAX on a lot of things, but I think with this I would say yes the IMAX, and yes the 3D, but yes the IMAX 3D, definitely, because it's the only way you're going to get the variable frame rate as well. And I was saying to Becca before we came on air, because she was online with us a little bit before Chris, I said, because a lot of people used to say 3D gave them headaches. Well, if you get headaches off 3D, you get headaches off 3D. I don't know if this will be any different. But what I was keen to stress was the switching of frame rate doesn't irritate your eyes or give you a headache or anything. It's just that it's noticeable, that's all. But it's worth experiencing just to see what you think of it. Because when The Hobbit came out in a high frame rate, certainly the first one, he fixed it a bit on the sequels.
Yeah, that caused quite a few.
It looked dreadful.
Quite a lot of criticism around it, wasn't there? I think
because
when that came out,
none of the set design or shot design took it into account. So Bag End just looked like movie sets, and when they went outside, it looked like a BBC costume drama. Well, James Cameron's got a bit more control of this because it's all designed in CG. It is effectively an animated film, but he's managed to make it work. There is a hyper reality to it, but it's largely because you've just switched from 24 frames per second. As the action sequences go on and you realise you're making much better sense of it than had there been a load of blur there, it's kind of nice. I kind of liked it, but he's used it as a tool, not a format, and that's his own words. He said it's a tool, not a format, and I agree with him, but the logical extension of that is you're flicking between the two, and I'm not quite sure of the logic of that. What I will say though is it's the first time I've ever seen it, a variable frame rate. So were it to become a common thing, I might be fine with it. If they could find a way to incorporate it into home technology, I might be fine with it. Have either of you seen it yet?
No, I've not seen it yet.
I think we all found the first one a bit ordinary, didn't we?
Can you remember it? Can you remember any of the characters?
Yeah, I mean,
funny enough, I started rewatching it last night.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus at the moment.
Yeah, it's one you kind of got to break into chunks, I think.
And I just wasn't like that. I remember like enjoying it at the time as a big event movie. And
Chris, did you watch it with Neve?
She's a bit
too young.
Partly.
The dialogue's a bit basic for Neve.
She's far too advanced, bless her.
No, I mean, well, she was there for most of that partial viewing, yeah.
Oh, bless her.
But I don't think she was watching it, to be fair.
No. a bit too young, bless her.
I mean, I as I say, I don't normally cross-promote my stuff, but I've reviewed it on Set the Tape, the newer one. So go and have a look at it there, because I do put some thoughts on the first film there. And I once you understand James Cameron's faults and accept them, you'll have a better time. He doesn't write dialogue very well. His characters tend to be blue-collar, slightly meatheadish. He has written good females in the past, for example, but his male characters, they're always given a name you can imagine a Marine having. and brevity has become lost to him over the years. So his stories are a little bit basic, but he does do spectacle with heart. And if you go in knowing what he is, you know, I mean, think of the first film. The head of the company, Giovanni Ribisi, he's putting. He's literally putting. That's such a cliche for a billionaire boss. You know, Quaritch's character, total cliche. Fucking Sully's character, complete meathead. You know, it wasn't a great film, but it was a nice environment. What he's done in the new film, I think it's a better written film. I still think he's not a great dialogue writer, but he's wisely gone to a new environment. You do still see the forests of Pandora, but you see the more sort of South Pacific kind of equivalent as well, and that's good.
All the water.
Well, you don't necessarily want 3 hours and 10 minutes of the same forest, do you?
No.
So that freshens it up. The new Na'vi do look different. They've evolved slightly different. It's akin to different races on this country. You go to Finland, everyone's white, you know, pasty with white hair, you know, blonde hair. You go to, you know, parts of Africa, they're very, very, very dark. Same principle. They're like a turquoise colour. They've got webbed hands, meteor forehubs, and meteor tails because they've evolved to be quick in water. And it just freshens it up a little bit. The new characters, the kids in it are pretty good. Kids actors can be hit and miss. I quite liked them. Sam Worthington is not as big in the film, but he's a better actor than he was years ago. And of course, you don't see the human version of him anyway. It's got all the basic issues you will have found with Avatar, but it is actually telling a slightly different story. I liked it, but I think a lot of it was I liked it as an event, which is not what I felt in 2009. I didn't in an ordinary 3D, but something about being in that IMAX screening with the frame rate, with the immersion, with the beauty of it, I did have a reaction to it. But 24 hours later, I gave it a 3-star review, so let's not get carried away.
Yeah. I'm a bit judgmental, like pre-watching it, just because I think it's over 3 hours, and I think really, like, who's really clamouring for a sequel to Avatar? Like, you know, I mean, why is he not telling like a completely different story with like using like the frame rate and all special? Why is he so fixated on Avatar? Where I
wasn't desperate to see another Avatar, to be fair, because I wasn't in love with it. But
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like,
but about halfway through the film, halfway through the film,
4 films or something like.
Yeah, I know, but
who wants this?
It did something to me because I mean, I'm quite smart enough to see what James Cameron is wanting us as an audience to think, right? With his conservation message and all that. It's all very basic and there. But I tell you, halfway through that film, I could have given up my job and gone and been a fucking like naturalist or something. Not a naturist, that's different. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I just wanted to be with nature. It had that effect on me. So as an experience, it was a bit special. As a film, no. It's got all of Cameron's flaws. But I had a good time with it. I had a better time with it than I did the first Avatar. But when I heard him interviewed today and he said, well, people were telling me they wanted the sequel to be a bit longer, I was like, who the fuck did you talk to? The first one was 2 hours and 40 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who wanted that? Who said that?
But I must say the length didn't really bother me. I mean, a lot of it is let's spend a little time with them in their first time in the water and stuff. Some of it is that you're learning the world and the culture and stuff, as basic as it is. But like I say, there's a set piece that ends the film. I'm not going to give any more than that, except it's day-night. And that's quite cool because their sun sets differently over there because it sets behind the planet, not the moon. So that's cool. So it goes dark quite quickly, although there's parts of the world, our world, that does that. So it's a day-night sequence, and I felt that went on too long. I will say that. But most of it I didn't really have a problem with. But I was going to take my wife to see it last night, and we made a spur-of-the-moment decision to go for a Chinese first. And you could just see it on her face. She was like, she likes to go early. She don't want to be sat in a cinema past like 10:30, really. She just doesn't. And I could just tell. She didn't say anything, and she would have gone. But like, I just pissed out. I lost the money actually. But it was like, it's just forget it. I've got the membership. I paid the uplift for the IMAX. But it's like, don't worry, we'll see it another day. Don't worry about it. You know, it's quite easy to pass on, is what I'd say. I enjoyed it and wanted to see it again, But when you think you're going to be in the screen for 3 hours and 40 minutes with the adverts, you're like,
yeah,
I don't mind giving it a miss. I would recommend seeing it though, but I'd recommend to anyone who hasn't seen the first one to see it, and I don't think it's that great a film. I just think, see it. Why not? It's, you know, whatever its cultural footprint, it is, at least unadjusted, the highest grossing film of all time. You got 3 hours spare to have a look at it, haven't you? See what you think. And you might like it. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are detractors of Titanic, but there are also people out there who love it. I remember years ago, and I always sound patronising when I tell people this story, just because she was a cleaner, but I don't mean to patronise her at all. I was at the office one night fairly late, about 6 months after Avatar came out, and I was chatting to the cleaner, right, who was a woman in probably her mid-50s, right? And somehow Avatar got mentioned, and she talked for about the next 5 minutes about what an emotional impact that film had on her. You know, it weren't hard to find people who did feel something, is all I'm saying. But it's a better film because there are fewer cliched characters in it, although Quaritch is in it. And Carmela Soprano is in it.
Oh yeah, I've heard she's in it.
Yeah. What was funny about it is she shot her bit like nearly 4 years ago, so she thought the film would come out and not done very well. She was shocked to find it was still yet to be released.
Oh, was she the one who? Yeah, she the one who said that I thought it'd been out and flopped.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Carmela Soprano, Edie Falco. She's effectively the military boss in it. She's effectively the Giovanni Ribisi. You see Giovanni Ribisi on a TV screen, and I honestly don't know, and you see Quaritch on a TV screen in human form, and I honestly don't know if they shot that in 2009 or just de-aged them. I don't know.
What, they had the foresight to film at the time?
I just wonder. I mean, they might have not had everything planned, but he might have been, if we ever do a sequel, Quaritch will be my bad guy. And that's not really a spoiler. There have been shots everywhere that Quaritch becomes effectively a Na'vi. And there's a video of him, his human self, explaining it to him. If you're watching this, I clearly died. That version of him has no memory of his death, because obviously it is like the time, it is the Red Dwarf episode, Body Swap, the mind meld. He had his mind put on a disc basically before he died. And Giovanni Ribisi is in the background of that shot and actually says one or two things to camera. And it's as they looked in the first film. So I don't know. And I saw an interview with Stephen Lang the other day. It was him, Zoe, Sam. I can't remember if James Cameron was there, but there was at least 3 of them, maybe 4. And they were being interviewed on a stage. And Stephen Lang does look older than he did in the first film, so I'm presuming they used some de-aging. I don't know.
But yeah, it has been a few years now, isn't it? So
he's another actor though. He's like he's in quite a few stuff. You forget that what things he's been in.
I almost can't tell you what he's been in
because he disappears. He disappears into some roles. Like he can play like pretty much anything. Like he's in Tombstone. I don't know if you've seen Tombstone.
Yes, I've seen Tombstone. Again, another film I didn't see till about maybe 6 years ago.
And like
he looks so kind in real life as well when you look at his Wikipedia page. Yeah.
He plays like a real nasty piece of work, doesn't he? But I'm sure it's one of those things where, like in real life, he's actually lovely.
It's funny because some things hit you different. Because in the first film, where he says, you know, you're not in Kansas anymore, you're on Pandora. I was like, yeah, that's James Cameron fucking dialogue. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, we know that.
Well, the funny thing is, the Avatar version of him says the same thing, right? More or less. And I'm like, well, that kind of works in this film because he doesn't remember doing the speech the first fucking time. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I just like I always see because they originally wanted Michael Biehn to play him, and I just think that character's completely. I can see Michael Biehn playing that character. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think he got all of his first choices anyway. I know his first choice for Jake Sully was Matt Damon, but I didn't know that till fairly recently, because they offered Matt Damon like 10% of adjusted gross. He'd have, you know, and he still makes jokes about it now.
Missed out on that opportunity.
Yeah. I don't remember him in a lot of other stuff. I mean, he was in Public Enemies. I remember that film. Don't remember him in it. Obviously Avatar. He was in the remake of Conan the Barbarian. I thought he was in the original for a start with. The fucking Jason Momoa version. Actually, relatively, a lot of these films I've not seen, even though I know of the film. Yeah, so we're definitely getting Avatar 3, and the rest will depend on the film doing phenomenally well. So we'll see. He didn't do a film.
Does it end on a cliffhanger?
No, but it ends on a kind of... It ends on a bit of a... We know more's coming. You can tell more is coming. What I hope, and I think this film has told me this, is I hope that at least in one of the next three, if he does in fact get to do all three, we do see other environments again. There must be part of that. There must be Na'vi who live in like snow or something. Do you know what I mean? And I'd like to see more than just, I don't want to see just the forest. I don't want to see just the reef again. But yeah, it's a strange film to review because I think I've had the reaction Cameron would have expected from someone in like 2009. I got the wow factor this time I didn't get last time, but I still think it's a deeply average film. But I also think it's a deeply average film everyone should see. And because of its preoccupations around things like family, it's all got things we can identify with. So whilst I gave it a 3-star review, there are people who are going to watch it and it will be their favourite film, and they'll get full respect from me for that. Yeah, so the bits we've missed on this film are the burnt out credit cards where he's like, Visa? And he's handing over a burnt chip, and the car on fire, and then he ends up staying in it all night. I mean, how much money must they be out between them? They've been robbed once, they've lost the value of his ticket, the car, he's just crashed into the motel. I mean, how much money do they owe? And then they just decide to like leg it.
You wouldn't be able to drive that car.
No, you wouldn't, because the tyres would have burnt for a start, wouldn't they?
It's hardly roadworthy, I don't think. I mean, I'm not a motorist, but I could probably say that
you're not a motorist.
You'll be able to drive that car.
Oh, well, yeah, then it probably is fine, Becca. If you're not a motorist, how can you tell? That might be.
Well, this is that. I just,
I think they're pulled over by the police, aren't they? And they're like, "Do you believe this car's roadworthy, sir?"
No. Gosh.
A strange era of cars that look like that. They look like weird wood panelling on the side. I remember that in the Vacation film as well. It's like strange designer cars.
I think that's probably one, despite living in America as briefly as I did, I think I still managed, obviously I saw Christmas Story about the one about kids BB gun, but I never did see the National Lampoon Christmas film, so when we couldn't see the next one, that might be my next choice. If nobody picks it before I do.
Who did, what did we do? Which one was last year? Which order are we in? I know I went first when we did it. Is it Chris next year or you?
It was Gremlins last time.
Yeah, I picked Gremlins last time. So
Chris, it's you next
time.
Yeah.
You can pick whatever you want.
All right. But we can pencil in, possibly, the idea of Christmas Vacation for the year after that. Because we'll still be here. We're not going anywhere. We'll be doing them. Oh, Michael McKean.
Going to be in your earballs.
I forgot Michael McKean had a little cameo in this. It's the lead singer of Spinal Tap.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
I'll never forget when he played...
I'll see where
second lead guitarist.
When he played... they played the Freddie Mercury concert. I think it was the Freddie Mercury one. It could have been the Mandela one, but I think it was the Freddie Mercury one. And they came out on stage, but they only played one song. And he said, and his words, he went to his microphone and he said, "We've decided to cut our set short by 37 songs tonight." Just thought it was funny. And of course, one of his bandmates is married to Jamie Lee Curtis. Whose tits we saw in a previous Christmas commentary special. Yes.
She really is great in that film. Like, she is just fantastic. I just think she's like, she's quite quite a tricksy role, but yeah, she really holds her own.
Well, obviously she won't be in it because she was in the original, but it made me think of Knives Out. Of course, we get the sequel on Netflix 3 days after we're recording this.
Yes.
This will come out as soon as I edit it.
Cinemas where you are? Because it didn't.
It came out for a week.
At all.
We've got a Cineworld and a View. Yeah. The View showed it. The Cineworld didn't.
Yeah.
I was quite happy to go to the View and watch it, but I think my wife was working like nights and stuff, and it was like, so she can't get to it. I'm not going to watch it without her. She's only got one night off. I thought, no, I owe it to, so I will watch it on
Netflix soon enough anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm reviewing it, so I wanted to go so I could do the review early. But it doesn't matter. I'll just watch it on Netflix, and with the schedule for the site anyway, it won't go up till New Year's Day anyway, or just after New Year.
But it's had good from the cinematic release it's received anyway. It's had good reviews. So
I expect it to be a very similar standard to the first one. I love the fact that he drives the van up, and it's like great comfort, and I think they've got to sit in the back, haven't they?
Yeah.
Just so the heater's working. About people riding in his cab. I don't know why he's allowed to drive it over, but he let him. So he ends up freezing in the boot. The boot. That's a British sound, isn't it? The back.
The trunk.
The trunk.
In the trunk.
Well, I don't know what you would call it on a lorry. If you wouldn't call it a lorry, would you?
You call it a semi.
I haven't got one of those. The film's good, but it's not good.
I don't want to know about that. Thank you. Yeah, they're like semi. I was like, what do you mean? Sorry. Someone was like, oh, lorry. Oh, truck. Yeah. And I was like, what?
But I mean, you can.
It's another language, isn't it?
You can tell that, like, even when they say goodbye to each other, Neil is just glad to be seeing the back of him.
I kind of think they've made that connection. I mean, he's relieved by it all, but I just think they have made a connection.
I think it's when he sits on the train and you get that moment to reflect, and he just thinks back and he goes, well, that bit made me smile, and actually I'm now laughing. He was an ass, that's a matte painting. That is a bad matte painting. That
was a really obvious matte
Where did they actually film it then? Because they obviously drove on a real road, but not into Chicago.
No, they must have shot it somewhere else and added that in.
They've just matted over the top.
That was like quite obvious matte painting. It's a good for matte painting. Yeah. Like that bit in The Spy Who Loved Me, where it's just Roger Moore painted against a wall.
Yeah.
It is very, very odd because, like, so when you go to, like, I know in, like, around going to New York, it doesn't look real. You see, like, the city itself,
yeah, it looks artificial, doesn't it?
It looks like you're driving towards a model. It's really odd.
Well, I mean, I drove from outside into, like, Boston, which is a smaller city, but it's a city. And I know what you're trying to say, and I did see the skyline of New York coming from Newark Airport. I think some of it is your familiarity with it. You're just like, it is like something stepping out of a picture or something. But that was a matte painting, to be clear.
Yeah.
And I've never noticed it before.
It just reminded me of it, yeah.
It's when you do get towards a big city and you're suddenly in about 8 lanes and you're like, I know how to drive, I'm comfortable driving, I've been doing this for decades, but I am on quote-unquote the wrong side of the road, in a car I don't know very well, in a city I've never been to. Am I in the right lane? And fuck me, what are the driving standards like here? You know what I mean? I remember driving into Toronto once.
It's also the spatial awareness, because you're in a bigger vehicle on a bigger road.
Not only that, when you drive on the other side of the car, on the other side of the road to what you're used to, for a while it doesn't feel like you're driving in a straight line. You feel slightly wobbly. It's really odd. And I know that I drove into Toronto once, which is like a mini New York, really. It's like a cleaner mini New York, but it's really busy. And I remember finally parking up at about, $24 for 6 fucking hours, that sort of thing. And I just remember being relieved, not because I was frightened, but I felt like the longer I was driving in this city, the more I was pushing my luck, because I didn't know the city, didn't know the car that well, didn't know the driving standards. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like I'm glad I'm not driving for a couple of days now, because I can't have anything go wrong. I drove to New Orleans as well, but that's not small.
Pie with bare hands, straight for the oven.
Every time Spider-Man has ruined me for Thanksgiving. And the reason I say that is, and I might have said it when we did the first Spider-Man film with Willem Dafoe, I saw behind the scenes that when they filmed that scene where Willem Dafoe's invited to the apartment for Thanksgiving, and he leaves and insults Mary Jane in that, they were filming it all day under hot studio lights, and the turkey started going bad, and it stank apparently. So every time whenever you see them in films, they're always exquisitely basted and like nice and brown and stuff. And that's a flip shot. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah,
it's flipped. His hair's on the wrong side.
Ah.
It's back on the right side now. It's because he needed to run one way, and they realised he was going the wrong way. Flip shots are stupid when a man has a side parting. It's a really stupid thing to do.
Continuity error.
Yeah, there's one in Thunderball, though they fixed it on the Blu-ray. When he's looking down from the helicopter, that was always the...
Oh yeah, that's a flip shot.
They flipped it back though for the helicopter. It's the other way now.
They flip-flopped it over.
I forget what I'm saying now. Doesn't really matter.
It just looked like Steve Martin. Looks weird.
No, but I said something before I noticed it was a flip shot, but it don't matter.
It was about turkeys and...
Yeah, apparently it was stinking. So every time I see what looks like a really nice turkey, I imagine it's been sat around on the set all day, and that actually puts it right. She's probably picked
It's probably a fake.
She's picked it out of the oven for the 57th fucking take.
Probably a fake turkey. Yeah. It's not even real.
Well,
it's made of like plastic or
sometimes
something.
you see them cut into it, so that has to be real. But when that's the case...
Oh, yeah, they probably have like a real one just for that particular,
Walk up the middle of the road, get run over, credits. I mean, how big a house do you need? I mean, he's got 2 children. How many bedrooms are upstairs there?
Yeah, they have massive houses, don't they?
Well, not all of them, I suppose, but you know what I mean, yeah. He does. Worth him never seeing his wife. Somebody type in something.
Oh, that's me, sorry.
It's alright.
Are they just like, well, to get the train, he just walked it?
I don't know. Or unless they've still got to walk from the train station. That wasn't his trunk, was it? He wouldn't have been carrying anything that heavy. And he hasn't called from the station or anything, because she still looks a bit like crestfallen, like he's not going to make it.
It does look exactly like the same house in Home Alone.
The house in Home Alone. I mean, they got 8 kids, 9 kids, and they're living in a fucking mansion. What does he do?
Quite a big family.
I mean, were they selling sex tapes? What were they doing back when they were rare? Honey, I'd like to meet a friend of mine. He's irritating as fuck. He'll probably spill his food everywhere, and you'll be desperate for the smelly bastard to leave. This is Stell Griffin. Yeah. I don't know where the fiction about having a wife came from and going home. I don't know what he was going to do. Just sit in the station. I don't know what he would have done. Does he just travel around because he's got to do something and all the companies close? I don't know. What would Del Griffith have done if he'd never met Neil or never met anybody?
I don't know. How would he have got home?
Well, he's saying he doesn't have a home. So presumably he just lives in motels. But yeah, dead at 43. He was a month or 2 away from 44. So yeah, he was.
It's sad, isn't it? I didn't realise. I knew.
I remember the day he died. I remember the day he died, or I remember the report. So probably the next day. You know what I mean? But I remember reading the report that he died. And of course, we didn't have constant access to the internet, so it wasn't a rumour and then breaking news and all that kind of shit. You picked up a newspaper and there it was.
Freeze frame.
Yeah,
Face black.
Yeah.
Well, it always ends a bit awkwardly though. It's like it just sort of like John Candy looking a little bit like kind of a bit touched, a bit like
he looks. He was a pretty good actor actually, because he looks halfway between very grateful and very uncomfortable. Like, yeah. But then I'm a bit.
I was going to say, had he not died, he'd probably probably would have won an Oscar, like probably late 90s, early 2000s ish. I could see, it'd be like had to be a bit of a resurgence, get a more serious role.
I'm not saying literally this director, but it's the sort of thing where, like Tarantino will occasionally cast someone you'd never thought of.
Yeah.
Who was dropping off the map or something. He could well have been, cast in a serious role. We've seen that before from comedians. We've seen it with Eddie Murphy and others. It's perfectly possible. Steve Martin has done.
Yeah, I
roles.
proper get like the Robin Williams quality. Where like he's usually playing comedic stuff, but then
he'll do Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, but because he has such a an earnestness, even when he does like comedy, there's an actual serious human quality to him.
Yeah, no one would have done. What's the one? Dead Poets better than him. No one would have done that role better than him. Sometimes I found his comedy way too much. I mean, we've talked about that, but I can't deny his talent and even his comedy when he was at the top of his game.
For me, it is Good Will Hunting.
He was fantastic in that.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, there we are.
I'm still going through some credits for a minute. So yeah, Christmas films will largely be Christmas films, but we occasionally, if we want to put something in, it's winter and it's holiday-ish, no problem.
I mean, what other sort of not strictly Christmas films are there?
Do you mean what might I do that isn't a Christmas film, but I do for Christmas commentary?
Yeah.
Groundhog Day.
There's Groundhog Day. And what else?
I can't really think of many others.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done a single version of A Christmas Carol yet, and there are many.
No, we need to do that. We need to kind of pick, or we work our way through.
Scrooged is.
Scrooged loosely, yes, but
yeah,
it isn't.
It is a traditional story.
We haven't done any of the adaptations of the Charles
Dickens
Dickens novels. We haven't.
The Patrick Stewart one was on TV today, which I've not seen, so I recorded it.
It's good. It's good.
Yes.
Is that the animated one?
No. It's live action. He made it in 99. He made it in 99, so he's about the age he was when he shot the first X-Men.
There are 4 goats.
Yeah.
And there's also the Albert Finney version.
Right, is that the musical one?
Yeah.
Okay. My favourite is the George C. Scott one. That was made for television.
Sadly, that's another one I've not seen.
That's 1984. That's really good.
Oh,
I remember seeing that the most at the time.
Then you've got the Muppets one, obviously. Patrick Stewart and Alistair Sim. That would be my top 4.
Alistair Sim is probably the absolute classic. That's the go-to.
I would probably, thinking about it, because I just agreed with one of our listeners earlier in his top 4. I would probably swap the Muppets, and I prefer Patrick Stewart to the Muppets. The Muppets is good, but it isn't actually as funny as you think it's going to be. They tell it quite straight. It's got jokes in it, but I would put that behind George C. Scott and Patrick Stewart. Kelsey Grammer did a version I don't like. Jim Carrey did a version, but it's typical Robert Zemeckis mocap. It's got a shitload of superfluous action sequences thrown in. It's not bad.
That's pretty cool, actually.
It's all right.
From a technical standpoint.
It's all right. I might show Joanna that soon, because she'd never heard of the story. She's not from here. So I showed her the Patrick Stewart one last year, and I showed her the Muppets one this year, and I may show her the Jim Carrey one. Kelsey Grammer's I didn't like. There's a few I've not seen. There was a version that Kate Winslet did a song for, an animated one in about 2000. Yeah. I've not seen it. There's a new version on Netflix this year which is animated. I've not seen that. But yeah, so what I'm getting at is that there's several of those to do. So whilst you wouldn't want a different version every year, we'll do versions of that. Batman Returns, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, they're all possibilities. And there are other Christmas films I probably haven't thought of. I did see A Christmas Story. It's when I had that involvement with an American lady years ago. We watched that sort of remotely from each other while on a Skype call. I watched A Christmas Story. I'd not seen that. That's a possible. That's on some streaming services.
There's a really old one that was re-released at the cinema recently, Bishop's Wife, with David Niven and Cary Grant. I think it's on
not seen it.
Amazon Prime. It's like 47 or something like that.
Talking of another film that most people have seen and I hadn't, until literally 2 nights ago, I watched the Richard Attenborough version of A Miracle on 34th Street.
It's lovely, isn't it?
I watched that 2 nights ago. I haven't seen the original. That's from the 40s.
I think that's also streaming.
Yeah, they're both available. So yeah, all of these things can be done, and a lot of it will be what did we think of on a given year.
Home Alone.
And just last year, it's a bit like Trading Places. A year or two before I did it just sort of stuck in my mind, and Planes, Trains stuck in my mind this time. I think even though it's now 3 years away, so we're now talking of Groundhog Day being 6 years away.
Oh.
The reason I say that,
unless somebody picks it first.
No, the reason I say that though is I think because I didn't pick a traditional Christmas one this time, I probably will next time. But obviously we got 2 choices in between. Chris will choose next year, so that'll be some pile of shit probably. But,
oh no!
But a really entertaining one. He'll pick something kind of funny and cool. He will. I've got no problem with either of his choices. It's just when you look at mine, they're all critically acclaimed, and then you look at his, and they're like, action star does a crap family film.
Trading Places is a great film.
I chose that. I chose Trading Places. That's
my choices are a bit random, like Scrooged and things like that.
Both Scrooged and Gremlins, both brilliant choices. So
Trading Places is a classic as well.
Yeah, Becca's is like a bit more of the people's choices, and. Whereas mine is a bit more.
Yours are like the edgy ones, and then Dave's like critically acclaimed.
I've heard of like a take. I can't remember somewhere, but I've seen it kind of like pushed like of someone sort of making like how Love Actually is like the best Christmas film. I was like, no, it's not.
Well, we covered it for Christmas.
No, it's not.
That was your choice.
Yeah, but it's not the best.
No, it isn't.
Film. Come on,
it isn't remotely. But then. Again, she hasn't asked for it, but if I was in a relationship with someone who said like they loved it and wanted to watch it every year, it's like fine. I get my It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas Eve, so no problem at all. I find it a little bit long and disjointed and a bit cheesy in places, but I don't, it's not awful, is it? It's watchable enough.
Yeah, it's a bit of a smash. Sometimes you get like there's some parts of it that's a bit like.
And then you got the nativity films, which I've not seen any of. I've not seen any of them.
The first one is quite good. The second one is amazing because it's got David Tennant in it playing
dual roles.
The third
one's Martin Clunes.
And the third one is completely different.
In what way?
Yeah, they were on TV recently.
Are they not doing the nativity in that one then?
I think it goes slightly down a different route.
All right. She doesn't want to spoil it. She doesn't want to spoil it in case I want to see it.
But directed by Debbie, is it? So very good.
All right.
But it's one of those kind of. Yeah. I was having this debate with on our family chat. It's like, well, they're probably typical British underdog type movies. That it's kind of gaining a cult following, or did very well at the box office.
Do you remember those?
Really well.
Remember there was that trend like a few years ago, probably more like 10 years ago now, where like there was lots of like British dance films kept propping up, like break dancing or whatever it is that was like they kept popping up all the time, or this in 3D. Do you remember those?
No, not really.
I've got the name of them. There was, I don't think it was Step Up, but it was like in that kind of vein.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I can't place I can't place it, but you've put me in the right era. I know when you're thinking about now.
Well, it's just like it was usually British movie. I think it was like all the times when Britain's Got Talent got going, and all these like sort of dance acts,
and those kind of things.
Yeah.
All these dance acts become popular, but they kept popping up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, any early thoughts on next year's choice? We're not going to hold you to anything, by the way.
I don't know yet. I have to think about it.
So yeah, loads of choice. Becca's toying with. What was it you were talking about? I forget.
Maybe National Lampoon, but we'll see.
That would be a really cool choice. Juliette Lewis was the kid in that.
So I'll try and correct it between maybe Christmas and next Christmas.
I try not to like rob anyone else's choices, and because there's also like an element of like, well, Becca's choosing this kind of film.
Well, if you want to choose it, you can.
Yeah, but if you choose it, I still get to do it. I mean, as with what I've just said, I'll be fucking quite old by the time we do Groundhog Day. So like,
I quite like to do Groundhog Day. It's one of my favourites.
So if you want to call that, you can. I don't care. But like, yeah, my next choice which is 3 years away, will almost certainly be a version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So, I'll have to think about it. So,
but that doesn't stop other people choosing, because I'm quite ambivalent on which one. And I may not like him in live action, but if you do like Patrick Stewart, I might go, well, I'll do the Jim Carrey one then, or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Or we can maybe work through them like historically in date order.
Well, the good thing about the Jim Carrey one, for example, is it's always on streaming. It's always on Disney Plus or something. And even if people who don't have it all the time might get Disney Plus for a month at Christmas or something. So it's quite an accessible one, whereas the Patrick Stewart one seems to come and go. The George C. Scott one I can't always find. The Ghost of Christmas Present in the George C. Scott one is Edward Woodward.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And
legendary
David Warner's in that as well. I'm pretty sure he's Bob Cratchit in that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I might have dreamt that though.
No, he is.
It's really good. Blackadder's Christmas Carol's too short. I'll say about 40 minutes. Although we could one year do like a combination. We could do that and Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Blackadder or something else.
Yeah, Mickey's Christmas Carol or something.
We could do a compilation. We could do like Blackadder, Father Ted, Christmas special.
Oh my god.
Well, just do a Christmas special. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
TV
and the League of Gentlemen. There you go.
Oh, the League of
We've
Gentlemen.
got Inside Number 9 Christmas special coming up Thursday, haven't we? So
what's
on
that?
TV. Inside Number 9. Obviously, it's the season for Christmas specials on TV.
I've seen very little Inside Number 9.
Gotta check it out. It's really
I think
good.
half of the problem is I fell so in love with the League of Gentlemen, I kind of almost didn't want to watch them in anything else.
Yeah, check them out. So good. They're all on iPlayer.
It's different enough that it's
Yeah,
not
it's-
like...
I don't know why I've got
very
to
different.
it. Isn't it different every week as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
different
kind of put
characters,
me
different
off.
themes.
It's one of the reasons I've not watched much Black Mirror. It's like, well, I don't want to watch a series of half-hour mini films. That's weird. But anyway,
Yeah, so do check it out. It's really, really good. They'll have you guessing. It's very twisty-turny.
I mean, yeah, he hits and misses. There's some you like and some you're not that bothered about. But
the League of Gentlemen,
first
certainly,
episode is very, very
certainly
clever.
the first 2 seasons of the League of Gentlemen, they changed the format a bit in the 3rd season, and it wasn't as good. But it is basically a sketch comedy show in a sitcom environment with overtones of horror. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, that could be said from a lot of their shows as well. There's always kind of like a mystery, thriller, horror element as well. And the same with Inside Number 9, the same with League of Gentlemen, the same with Catterick, the same with, any sort of show that they vaguely had a handprint on.
Anyone watching who's never seen it, I'm thinking more of American audiences, if you've ever seen our Sherlock, the one with Benedict, his brother in that is Mark Gatiss, who is one of the League of Gentlemen.
One third or 1/4 of League of Gentlemen.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah. I think the best way to describe it is like it's a bit. What if Monty Python went all in on Hammer?
Yeah, literally Monty Python meets Hammer. That's probably a good way to summarise it for sure.
You know how you feel when you watch an American Werewolf in London and they send the boys out of the pub onto the roads by themselves? You know, that's how the League of Gentlemen feels.
That sense of dread.
Yeah.
But it's really funny. And it's just some small Yorkshire town. And in the 2nd season, their mayor is Roy Chubby Brown.
Whose
real name is
Whose real
Royston
name is the name of
Vasey.
the town.
Yeah, is the name of the town. And he can't stop swearing, just as the guy can't in real life, because he gets through one bit where he's Lord Mayor and they're talking to him, and he gets through everything he wants to say without swearing. And they said, Lord Mayor, thank you. He says, you're fucking welcome.
He drops that bomb at the end.
Really funny.
Yeah, all you have to know is like sort of like one of the opening gags is like the sound saying "Welcome to Royston Vasey, you'll never leave."
Yeah,
I'll never escape.
Yeah, and the butcher there is selling something which it hints might be human meat, but they don't really.
No, it's either human meat, dog meat, or
and
something.
And it's a series of sketches, but it's in a sitcom environment.
All the characters are all grotesque, like they all wear lots of makeup and
they all
quite
play
terrifying.
multiple different characters. So Mark Gatiss plays the butcher, but he also plays a
vet.
faded pop star, and he plays this vet. He's really kind, and it's a lot of farms around there. So he goes to like, I don't know, there's some obstruction in a cow, so he puts his hand up the cow's backside and then pulls out its fucking intestines or something. He ends up killing every animal he treats. The League of Gentlemen.
It's always that look on his face, that kind of like that kind of embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, you usually have to like blood dripping off it after like some horrific accident.
Yeah, it'll take you an episode. It'll take you a couple of episodes to tune into it, but it's
it's very particular, isn't it? It's very British in many ways.
We've never had a sitcom like it.
No.
Sketch show, whichever you want to call it. And it, very influential. Anyway, so we sort of talked about that film. Chris is going to choose for next year, and we move back now to our Dollars Trilogy films and Leone, and we'll get together before New Year and just chat for a couple of hours. We've got no agenda and no plan. We'll just talk.
Yeah.
Maybe do a review of the year.
I probably would have seen Avatar 2 by then, so
yeah.
Sounds good.
We may end up talking about one film for 2 hours, or 20 films for 20 minutes, or no films at all.
See where it takes our fancy.
See where we go. It's just a little bonus. The closest thing, we haven't planned it to be like this, but if any of you listen to the Filmcast, they do an After Dark sometimes, which can go off in any direction. It's a bit like that. That's what it'll be, but longer because it's us.
And we like to rant a little bit and go off on a tangent.
From me, Merry Christmas. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and thank you for another year. We're into our 8th year now, and our six years since we did our first one of these. Thank you for all your support and your patience, because we know there are gaps. Merry Christmas, everyone. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everyone, and thank you for listening. You can be sure to find us all on Podbean, our new home, which we moved late this week. Not this week, this year. Yes, so you should find us all on there. It should be like a lot easier as well.
Absolutely. I don't know if the old Cinematronics episodes are on there, but most of them that were just me and Chris were sort of simulcasts anyway, so you'll find them in the
definitely on YouTube.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Our summer reviews. We didn't do a summer review this year, and I think we got out of the habit of doing them. So let's see next year, because we've probably seen enough to do one this year. But it's a bit late. We're not doing a summer review in December, so we'll just do one for the year. I will have the list of films I've seen up, but of course with Becca there, it's just going to take on a different life anyway. But we'll try and get back to doing them next year.
Okay, you say so.
Anyway.
That's goodbye from him.
Okay, goodbye.